You could accept the fact that this city is headed for a disaster of biblical proportion.
What do you mean, biblical?
What he means is Old Testament, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor. Real wrath of God type stuff.
Exactly.
Fire and brimstone coming down from the skies. Rivers and seas boiling.
40 years of darkness, earthquakes, volcanoes.
The dead rising from the grave.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
We've even seen a referee 2 feet from the play on the sideline staring at the guy trying to catch the ball, staring at where his feet are, and still calls him out.
Get ready for 2 hours of hard-hitting football talk from two men in the know. It's Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.
Drew Brees is a Hall of Famer, absolutely, and showing that he could possibly be the GOAT.
All right, but I gotta say something about the New England Patriots here. The Patriots kept coming out and saying, before the Super Bowl even happened, they kept saying, oh, well, everybody's against us. Bullshit.
What they say, it's not the X's and the O's, it's the Jimmies and the Joes.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome once again to another episode of Football on the Know. I am Jim McPhee, and alongside of me is Mr. Joe DeCapita.
What's going on, all? Welcome back for another edition of Football on the Know Show. We are ready to talk some more football, although there's not a whole lot of news going on around right now.
No, not a lot of news going on. We're hearing some things coming up from coaches and other GMs, and impressions they have on some of the young talent that's going around. People are doing their top boards here and there. We like to do our top boards, too, as well. And we've been doing a lot of that, lately. The last month and a half or so, we've been doing our biggest questions. We had that coming up later, as you can see here on our schedule. And also our top 10 list that everybody enjoys so much. We have done all the offense, stuff like that, and now we are on to defenses and things. So not a whole lot going on and stuff. Well, so we're going to open it up to you guys, too, out there to put up questions and comments and things like that. If you guys have something you want to talk about, too, you can bring it up as well. But we have some things planned here as well for everybody. And we also have our fact of the day, too, Joe.
That's right. Just wanted to say thank you to everybody that has been supporting us through all of our shows. And we look forward to continue to make each show better and better as we go. You also can follow us on Twitter at FB_know. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe on YouTube for us. Help us grow that portion of our show, too. Football on the Know show up there. Hit subscribe. Hit the notification bell to get all the latest and greatest updated content, and so forth. And, Jim, what do we got on the docket?
All right, well, first of all, I want to give a big DJ horn, if I can find it here. Here we go. To our last week's MVP, show MVP. It was a close one, Joe. It was down between a duel between two brothers.
That's right.
It was so close. And you and I had a disagreement on this, too, because I was going for Jack Connor, possibly, because he also had shared our show.
Yeah.
And he had also commented a lot, too. But Cody, on the other hand, though, he did comment a lot and shared a lot of information with us here and was very active with the show. So our last week's show MVP is Cody Cook. There you go. Yeah, so you know what? We're coming up with two now with the MVP, the show MVPs. Everybody wants to know what this is about. What's the show MVP? How do I become show MVP?
Quite simply, it's got to be more. You got to be interactive. You got to be involved in the show a little bit more often. You know what I mean? Like we mentioned before, the brothers were battling last week. They were going back and forth with either questions or comments or as we saw it, just one right after another. What's going on with the Packers? What's going on with this team? What are your thoughts on this player? Whatever the case may be, it could be even about your team. It doesn't even have to be about what we're talking about. That's the greatest thing of our show, is that we are trying to be as interactive as possible. So if you want to talk about something completely different than what we have planned, go ahead. Put it out there. Comment and let us know what you would rather us talk about, whether it be a team, a situation that a team's going through, draft picks, whoever got drafted, who do we like, dislike type of thing for each team, or, even fantasy questions we're open to that as well. So anything that resembles or is part of the football world, we're here to talk about. So go ahead and share it.
Absolutely, Joe. And there's something interesting about this whole MVP thing too. I came up with. We are moving on further along in this season. We are going to be on live streaming on 24/7 football channel and things like that. So things are moving up for us. And with that, you guys are going to be able to enjoy a lot more things. So I came up with the idea here, Joe. I am tallying all of the MVPs. We are going to gather up all the MVPs that we get throughout the whole this season.
Okay.
And you can be the MVP more than once. So each time you're an MVP, you're a show MVP, you get your name in on a raffle. And at the end of the year, like the week after the Super Bowl, we're going to do a giveaway.
Excellent.
I don't know what it is yet right now, but by then we're going to have something spectacular for you, and we're going to give you guys something, the winner, our biggest MVP of the year. So this is another reason to start interacting with the show, comments, likes, posts, shares.
I think I'm going to have to dress up for that.
We are streaming live from YouTube, Periscope, and Facebook right now, so bring them on in, all your questions, comments, and stuff. Be a show MVP, and share.
That's awesome.
And like all of our social media out there. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and what else? Instagram, Snapchat. So look for us.
all the different
FB_now.
social media
All right,
platforms.
so let's get to the business here, Joe. Let's talk some football. All right, so one of the interesting headlines for me was this thing about David Baker comes out for the Hall of Fame committee, and he says that the Hall of Fame is actually considering 20 enshrinees here for 2020 for inductions, and normally it's 8. We
that's
talked
a
about
huge
this.
incline.
8, yes, a huge amount they're going to put it to.
Wow.
So normally it's 8. They're going to go on to 20 just because it's the 100th year, it's the centennial year of the NFL. Let's go big. But you and I have had a debate about this whole thing and why they're deciding to do this here. And what's your take on here about going from 8 now to 20?
I mean, if it's a 1-year thing, like you mentioned before, like the 100th anniversary of the NFL, I can get it because they want to make it a big deal for this year. It's it's the 100th year of the NFL's existence, so they're trying to have everything. Even teams are going out of their way and doing different things, whether it be a fundraiser for the 100th anniversary or something for the team, something for the community. However it shakes out. Now the NFL is looking into opening up a lot. I mean, to me, it's a lot of extra spots for 1 year to induct 20 Hall of Famers. If this continues, though, if this is something that they're changing now and going forward, going to do 20 every year, I think that's a little crazy. I mean, the Hall of Fame is for the greats. It's for the best at that time. That every year it's supposed to be the best of the best. Now, I feel like they haven't done as good of a job as they should have throughout the years, because when you look at some of the players or even coaches, some of the players and coaches, whoever gets inducted into the Hall of Fame, some of them, I'm sorry, but some of them don't belong in there maybe right now. There's other players or coaches that have been waiting for years and are better than the guys that have been put in the past, in the recent past or later. And it's a little bit, disgruntling. It's a little bit, I'm disappointed a little bit in the Hall of Fame committee. And here's the other problem with how they vote these players and coaches in is it's a panel of journalists for the most part. And I get it. They've been there, done that. They've followed the game throughout the years, and that's who they created this panel to vote these players or coaches in. But the problem is it's not always about the body of work. Sometimes it's about the person's attitude towards media, or it's about he was a great name. Everybody knew him. He was popular, Mr. Popular. So maybe he gets in above a guy who did the body work. If the body work is better, that's what it should be judged upon. And unfortunately, we don't always see that happen. For the most part, they do get it right. But there are some players that get in because they were more likable, in the locker room or during interviews. Journalists and people alike that have interviewed them, they just find them,
I
He's a
know.
nice guy, so maybe he should get in.
I hear it. This was almost the debate that they were having with T.O., and they were like, oh, should he
Yeah.
go in or not and stuff like that. And he was even put off, and he finally goes in. So where he even snubs him. Says, I don't care. I'm not even going to show up then. I'm not going to go.
Right.
And things. And they're like, well, do you really want to do that? I don't know. And
That was his choice.
yeah, that was his choice, and that's part of it. And I think what their aspect they're talking about, because they said also, he quoted to what you just said was, the Hall of Fame isn't about, the pretty goods, the pretty decent guys. It's about the greatest. It's about the greats being in there. And a lot of them get pushed off to the wayside. And I think what he's bringing up is some of them even to where there's such a great pool of players, especially this year's coming up,
100%.
that you have to select it down to a narrow few, and some get left behind or so. Why not embrace them and bring them all in at the same time and have those better amount of players there? And also, like you said, some get snubbed along the ways as they're going. And
Yeah, so you got to
they're
wonder.
in there so many times with other great players that are, say, modern era players that jump in, and they still get pushed back to now to where they haven't been in.
Yeah, and that's just because of familiarity. Those players, more current players or coaches, people know them so well, especially like the younger generation. They're like, oh, no, they got to get him in. He's better than that guy. I never heard of that guy. Who is that? George Blanda? Never heard of him. But and that's the thing is you got to wonder, like, if this is a one-year thing, maybe it's almost like they're trying to play catch-up in a sense of all the guys that they've kind of shafted along the way. Maybe this is an effort to try to get them into the Hall and try to catch up, so to speak, with all those greats that are left behind.
Right.
And it's discouraging, too, because when you look at some of the all-time lists, there's guys that make it into the Hall of Fame sooner than some of the players that are left out on the outside who outperformed the guys that got inducted into the Hall of Fame. And it's crazy. This is the Hall of Fame is supposed to be nothing but the greatest to play the sport. No matter what era it is, the greats make it into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and we've had this debate thousands of times because we were even thinking about having a segment about this again, like Joe Namath versus Joe Montana, or some of them just like who's in and who's not, there and there, and whether they're actually famous or like a very good player, stats wise, it could be championships. That's where the debate comes with also greatest player of all time with Tom Brady and stuff like that. The 6 rings, he always has to go for show for it. But you, on that point of view, though, like to look at body of work altogether and what have they done there. Fact is, with Hall of Fame now, that's a little different too, and more individual effort. And also, you can't be just counting in, yes, they're on a championship team. Like I just said, Joe Namath, he's a debatable guy that, you could possibly have in there. This kind of stemmed from even a conversation we were having about top 25 quarterbacks of all time lists that Elliot Harrison, I think, for the NFL network, NFL.com posted. And Troy Aikman was up there. Russell Wilson was like an 18th of all time. Aaron Rodgers at 10th. And some of this was just, I'm like, how do they figure? And Terry Bradshaw was above, some of those guys. You know what I mean? And Bradshaw, yes, he has the 4 championship rings, but his regular season stats are less than desirable, not of like an elite quarterback.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he isn't exactly, he's not like what people would say even the guy from the Baltimore Ravens who won the Super Bowl there. I can't remember. Trent Dilfer.
Trent Dilfer.
Trent Dilfer. He is not exactly the Trent Dilfer, of quarterbacks. He was better than him. But to be maybe enshrined into the Hall of Fame due to championship rings instead of individual effort or things that he had done, it's a little debatable there, Dan. When there's other guys that are sitting outside of it, where you're like, why is this guy not in?
Yeah, and Jim, how I feel about the whole, best ever, the greatest ever, all that jazz. And here's the thing. The Hall of Fame is meant to be best of the best. Now, I don't care if you despise the guy, hate the guy, or whatever, but you got to respect the body of work he's put into to put into the league. Like a Tom Brady. So a lot of people believe he's the best ever, but I'm sorry, there's way too many variables when you talk about the best ever. There's different eras that the sport has been played through. There's different changes that the game has endured along the way. Penalties. You look at how many penalties have changed recently. So you mean to tell me that now that the penalties are way different now, like what makes the best defensive end, what makes the best quarterback, what makes the best receiver? You can't just say one guy out of 100 years of football is the best at that position. I'm sorry. There's just no way you can justify it. Too many variables, like I was saying.
Yeah, to put them all on one list.
Yeah, and exactly. Like Tom Brady, I'm not a huge fan of Tom Brady, and I know you're not as well, but you got to respect the guy's body of work. And I do not care of how many Super Bowls he's won. Look at what he's done in his career. Look at how, I mean, his stats speak for themselves. His milestones that he's conquered speak for themselves. So, yes, at the end of Tom Brady's tenure as a quarterback, he will be going to the Hall of Fame and, quite honestly, probably a first ballot. As much as I don't like him, I respect what he's done in the NFL. You know? So, and that's the mindset that I think a new panel of people they have to implement into the voting process for Hall of Famers. Because and the other thing too, you can't put emotions into it, and that's the problem with these journalists. They put in emotions. Oh well, he was a a little bit of an asshole whenever I interviewed him. So guess what? You know what? I'm not voting for you. You know, so that's a problem, and I think that problem is definitely going to continue as long as they have the same guys in the power seat to vote these players and
like
coaches
you said, even with media being to be able to do the voting and stuff like that, that's now a bigger pool. I mean, some of these guys are able to get those chance to be the votes. I mean, Heisman voters as well. You want to look at that. We're part of the media now even too, you know, I mean, in a sense, and they're getting younger too. Younger people are getting on and starting blogs and things like that and being part of the media and being able to get a chance to vote too. So like you said, they might not know who some of these older players like George Blanda, like you said, Sammy Baugh, who are, you know, Hall of Famers that are great players, never got a chance to witness what they did. And things, you know, to see it on television. Like when we have the discussion with the Phillip Rivers discussion a few years ago, 2-3 years ago, I'm talking to people about how sneakily Rivers is one of the good quarterbacks out there still, and they're laughing at me. They think he's just a jokester because they've never seen him been on a winning team until last year, the year before they started to come around.
You look at the his past body of work though. What has he had around him, too? That's the thing, is he was able to put up substantial numbers as a quarterback without having an offensive line, without really having any receivers. You know, he's had at least one good one for the majority of his career. You know, you think of Vincent Jackson days when he had him, but that was really all he had. Then Antonio Gates came, and he started heavily relying on him. You know, and now Keenan Allen is there. But he's never really had a complete receiving core, has never had just surrounded by weapons and then see what he can do. So for him to be very successful with next to nothing early in his career, now has inherited a better team, and you see where they ended up in the playoffs last year. So, you know, it's the same thing. You can't judge the guy because, oh, well, you know, the record, he really didn't win a lot of games. Well, it's a team game, for one. It's not an individual game. As many want to point to, like, oh, well, it's the quarterback's fault for losing this game or that game, or the receiver dropped the ball. It's all his fault. It's a team game in the end. There's so many opportunities throughout a game to take it over, whether it be maybe your team is just getting a ton of penalties thrown up against them. Well, that's on everybody. You know, maybe the quarterback isn't having a great day, but maybe, you know, the running back is. So, I mean, there's all kinds of different things that can happen throughout a game to change the outcome.
Yeah, and you're talking about those teams where he had LaDainian Tomlinson, too, as a running back, too. Try and think of the other teams that are out there that he was facing all the time. Once he gets to the playoffs, you've got Peyton Manning and the Colts. You've got Tom Brady and the Patriots still there. And if you make it through any of those, you've got Ben Roethlisberger, who he was in the same class with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So you have so many elite other quarterbacks there, manning teams that also are great franchises, knew how to draft, had great defenses along with offenses. So to try and beat those milestones or climb those mountains, it was that more difficult. And those playoff games are really intense to watch. And it could have been, some of those were just by a play or two just gone wrong for him.
Exactly.
I mean, I was there, I was watching it, and some of the people don't realize some of that. So that's the difference with some of these guys voting for the Hall of Fame.
And here's the other thing too about the Hall of Fame that I wanted to touch on as well is there's got to be a threshold, I think, to get to the hall, to get even considered to be in the conversation to enter the hall, and there
Guidelines.
isn't. Yeah, there's got to be a threshold. You got to make a certain requirement in stats or or body of work of what you've accomplished in order to get in. Now, some people say, "Oh, well, it's because if you haven't won a Super Bowl, then most likely you're not going to make it in the hall." Well, okay. Well, what about Barry Sanders? Barry Sanders is one of the best all-time running backs that I've ever watched. There's other running backs best all-time before I started watching. Like a Earl Campbell and a Jim Brown and Walter Payton and those guys. But Barry Sanders never won a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he's in the Hall of Fame.
But
and even a shortened career.
Right, but
on
some
a losing
people,
team.
and this is the funniest thing, and this is kind of what just popped in my brain right now, is that Barry Sanders was so close. If he played one more year, he had the opportunity to beat Walter Payton's record. All-time rushing yards, it's never been even close to being touched. And Barry Sanders, if he plays one more year, he was 31 years old when he retired. And he had a 1,400-plus rushing season that year. He needed something like 1,473 yards the following year to break that Walter Payton record, which is never going to be touched. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The only guy that's come close is Barry Sanders. Now, just imagine that. A 31-year-old running back would have been 32, ran for over 1,400 rushing yards at the age of 31. I'm sorry. He had more than enough life in him. He could have played 2 or 3 more years and completely decimated it. So that type of player, body of work, we go back to body of work, didn't ever win a Super Bowl, never even really sniffed a Super Bowl. But body of work, that's what got him into the Hall of Fame. Now, that's what I'm looking for. Guys that supersede the criteria, that supersede, some of the greats. Barry Sanders, I'm sorry, in my opinion, because he's the only one that I really got to watch growing up, Barry Sanders to me is one of the best running backs that I'll ever get to see run. Now, we start to see currently, there's some guys coming up that are still young, that are starting to make a name for themselves, and are considered one of the best. You'd look at Le'Veon Bell, who's been one of the best today for the longest time, for almost his whole entire career. Now will he be able to do enough to make it to the Hall of Fame? And that's the thing, is I think we need to get away from Super Bowl championships. Everyone kind of points to that, going when they start to divvy up these players and stuff. Say, oh well, did he win a Super Bowl? Well, what does that matter? It should, bottom line, it should be body of work, what they've done. And if they've done, here's the thing, is we talk about threshold. There has to be a requirement to make it into the conversation, like I just said before.
Yeah.
If there's not, and you're it's like a gray area. Oh, well, can we justify to get this guy in because he made a phenomenal catch in the Super Bowl? Because he made a couple of all-time great plays. Well, no, that shouldn't be shouldn't be it. It should be what they've done compared to their colleagues. Were they the best?
Right.
That's what should be getting in.
Yeah, it's almost like a checklist. Did they do this? Check. Did they do this? Yep. Check. Did they do this? Check. Yeah, that looks good to me. It makes it a little more cut and dry.
Right.
Note on Barry Sanders too. That might have been the same year that he was a co-MVP with Brett Favre. So think about that. When was the last time a running back was MVP of the league? You know what I'm saying? Usually it's quarterbacks like Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, things like that. This was a running back that was co-MVP with Brett Favre,
and
of the league.
Right, and just so for the younger generation, Barry Sanders, go ahead and check him out on YouTube. Look up some of his highlights and his runs. Just so you all know, back in those days, he had 0 offensive line. They could not block to save their lives. He didn't even have a good quarterback. They didn't have really receivers. I mean, they had Herman Moore later on, but but they didn't have talent for that matter. And the Detroit Lions were just riding the coattails of Barry Sanders to get some wins. I think the best record that they had while Barry was there was 10-6, and it was all because of Barry Sanders. It wasn't because of anybody else on the team. It was all because of Barry Sanders. Even defenses that would plan just for Barry, and he'd still get 150 yards on him or something like that in a game. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, so, I mean, right now they've got half. I guess there was a smaller committee that's approved it, but now it needs to go through a larger committee.
Right.
And they gave us a breakdown here. We're going to pan to this here quick. This is what they're saying would be like if they go and vote in 20 players here.
Okay.
And or vote inductees, rather. They're going to break it down to 5 normal modern era players out of. They're going to have 15 finalists and narrow it down to 5 still out of the modern eras.
Okay.
So that's still kind of going to be similar. But they're going to add where I think the addition here is 10 seniors
10
now.
seniors, yeah.
So that, again, that's seniors now. People that have been there for a while. That's where I'm
They've been in that pool.
That's the pool that's been sitting there. That again, I think like you said and when I said, kind of with the media now, maybe some of the youths coming in don't remember some of these guys or haven't really considered some of these guys that have been there that are greats that just keep getting passed by some of these other guys that are the newer,
more current,
fresher, seeing them come in and throw them out there. 3 contributors and 2 coaches also are going to be down in here too, and that's I think fairly close to what it is, at least here and there. But that's the main thing is the seniors you're seeing is going to be added into that. So I think that's a major part of it. So I don't know if we're going to see a real difference on some of the fresher guys. Say like Peyton Manning comes in. He's a modern era player. He's going to be coming in. Boom.
Yeah.
He's the first ballot. You got to know that right there. So
I'd put him in 2 of them.
Yeah, there you go. So there you go. Out of 15. So that's still going to be a tough, I think, decision for some of these guys.
Yeah.
Roughing it through
It's
there.
never going to be easy.
But you're going to finally see some of these older guys, if they go for it. It goes to a final vote in August 2nd.
Yep.
They're going to come look at the final committee and approve it if they do or not.
Right.
And these seniors will finally get some recognition. You know, you see now and
Gotta
kickers
get
and
in.
punters are finally getting in too, and they deserve some of that too as well. So that's something there to do with the Hall of Fame. Also, one more quick thing on the Hall of Fame. I just read this before we were doing our show. Ryan Shazier said he's something like hopes to make a push for the Hall of Fame. Now, what do you think of that? I mean, he was a great player while he's on there, and
absolutely
he's
great.
still even trying to strive to make it back to play, which is amazing.
And
he's walking, which is amazing in itself as well.
I will say
But
this. I am
body of work.
absolutely baffled. I am baffled that he is walking.
Yeah.
I am absolutely shocked that I seen a video of him jumping on a plyo box.
Yeah.
Working out.
Yep.
Like, listen, he's nowhere near where he has to be to even kind of practice.
Yeah.
But it is truly amazing the willpower that Ryan is imposing. He's showing people that have doubted that. I mean, that injury. I saw the injury happen. We both saw it. We saw the video and everything. It's career ending. And doctors right now are still saying, no way can he make it back. It's a very steep hill to climb. I wish him all the best. I hope he could. I mean, if just by what he's able to accomplish things right now that nobody could imagine, let alone walking. I mean, that right there is just truly amazing. We really hope and we pray for you, Ryan Shazier, to get to a point to maybe where you can, maybe one last ditch effort to climb out on the field there and maybe give it a go. But here's the thing: when you talk about Hall of Fame for Ryan Shazier, he's had a short career, and he's still young. I don't think he's had enough time to create that body of work like we're talking to get into the Hall currently. But by some miracle, he's able to get back to close to what he used to be, and maybe put some time on the field right before he is done. I mean, quite honestly, he could be done right now. It's just it's truly amazing what he's been able to accomplish up to this point, but he's still got a long ways to go. As far as Hall of Fame, sadly, he's just not there yet.
Yeah.
But just think, I mean, if we were to see him healthy, if this incident never occurred, I definitely could see the conversation start to evolve that maybe he could be in line for Hall of Fame material. But
Right, and he's in the conversations with some of the best linebackers in the game right now.
Oh,
where
yeah,
they were talking
definitely.
about. So, yeah, wish him all the best. Like you said, it was a miracle. And the way I look at it too is years just keep passing though, and he is making progress.
Right.
If he wants to use maybe trying to get back into the NFL as his motivation to work hard and get in there, that's fine, and if that works for him, but it's highly unlikely with the time constraints that he has too, and things
Exactly.
like that it'll
Exactly.
actually happen, because by the time he does, he's going to be a bit older, and basically for anybody to come back in and play at a high level
I mean,
at that age will
yeah.
be even kind of tougher.
Yeah, because by the time I think he gets 100%, and that's if he gets 100% or 95% back. I think the age portion, it's going to be a little bit too late for him to come back.
All right, here we go. Mike Tackett's in the house here, joining in with us.
What's going on, Mike?
I'm very old, Mike. All right, he says, happy hump day again, guys. Just seen you guys were talking about the Hall of Fame players. I was looking at players that are not in the Hall of Fame, and all those names instantly ring a bell for me. I hope they all make it into Canton one day. Let me know what you guys think. Here we go. Adrian Wilson, Steve Tasker, Gary Fenkick, I can't even pronounce it right. Ken Anderson, Darren Woodson, Steve Atwater, which I thought he might go last time. Andre Johnson, Tony Baselli, I thought he might even be in last year, so this looks good for him. Leslie O'Neal, Isaac Bruce, Zach Taylor, Richard Seymour, Cliff Branch, and John Lynch. Yeah, John Lynch is an interesting one too.
Yeah, it is.
Because
and he's what I would like to call a
what's
fringe
funny?
Hall of Famer.
Well, I thought it was funny because I look for my facts of the day and things like that too, and I had some interesting ones. And that fact is going to come up in a little bit. But John Lynch isn't even, I think, in the Ring of Fame, I think, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Which I don't get, because this guy was like one of their marquee players and a big player for them for the longest time. And yes, he did play in Denver as well, but he was a key player for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back when they were the nasty fluorescent orange that were a very bad team.
The thing with John Lynch is I don't know. I thought last year he did end up having a ceremony to be in the Tampa Bay Ring of Honor, I think, but it was later in the season,
it just
so
happened to be,
maybe that's why you're thinking he's still not in there. But John Lynch, to me, now see, here's the thing where I start thinking about greatness. You think about, for safeties, you think automatically Ed Reed. He's one of the more current guys. That's who now here's the thing, Ed Reed, one of the absolute best safeties. John Lynch, I'm sorry, doesn't even come close to Ed Reed. And if you don't come close to one of the best and one of the greatest ever to play that position, to me, you don't really belong in the Hall of Fame. And John Lynch, as great of a career as he had, I don't think he had elite status of a career. So to me, John Lynch is more like a fringe Hall of Famer, I'd like to call him. He's in the conversation, but for me personally, I don't think he has enough accolades and enough, body of work to get into that Hall of Fame. But there's a couple of names on there that are very familiar. Guys like Adrian Wilson, another safety, another phenomenal safety. He made a ton of plays. I think Wilson could be in that conversation to get in. Steve Tasker, now he's interesting because Steve Tasker was not only he came on with the Bills heavily as a receiver, but also more than not a special teamer is what he was seen as very popular. He was kind of ahead of his time. A lot of people when they think of returners, they think of more current ones like DeAndre Hall, a guy who was like super quick, super fast. Very shifty. Steve Tasker wasn't really kind of like that. He wasn't super fast. He had some quickness to his game, but he had the smarts. It was almost like Nostradamus, returning a kick, where he just kind of saw the holes that not a lot of people would get to see. Wasn't the fastest guy, but had decent speed and made the most of every play, every return. And then even on the receiving end, hey, he was involved in that offense with Jim Kelly at quarterback and made the most of it there. Had a bunch of touchdowns and everything. So he's interesting to me. I don't know if he's one of those type of players that you put into the Hall of Fame, because he was more like he was special teams / receiver, helped the offense when he did. Not saying
for
I'm
me-
not trying to take anything away from him, but he still had a great career.
From what I recall, when I used to watch him and stuff too, what I can, I think he is Wes Welker before Wes Welker was Wes Welker.
Okay.
Was Julian Edelman. Right? You guys got that? I mean, that's what I think what kind of a receiver
Right.
he kind of seemed like to me.
Yeah.
That kind of stature. He worked the special teams at times, did great at that, but he was a good slot receiver in there and kind of shifty here and there.
Yeah.
And that's what I remember about him. And yes, good player as you're going through, but
Right.
again, when you break it down, Wes Welker, is he a Hall of Famer? He was a good player,
Right.
But
Didn't make-
people
yeah.
put it up. Julian Edelman, he puts up 1,000 yards maybe a year for
Right.
the New England Patriots, a big pivotal part of their team.
Right.
Is he a Hall of Famer though?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. It's a great, it's a great elusive, physical.
And that's the thing too. I think too. If you really kind of got to think about it and be like, is he a great player? I don't know. I mean, is he? Usually, when you have that first thought of a guy, and you're like, usually you should be able to like, oh my God, yes, that guy deserves to be in. But when you have to really think about it, be like, does he have enough? Does he have enough body of work? Did he do enough to make it? That's kind of like where it's a little bit questionable. Where like maybe you don't put him into the Hall of Fame because you got to really think hard about that player. And then here's the thing, and I'm not saying that that I know everything there is to every player that's going to be into voted
Right.
possibly into the Hall of Fame, because I'm being quite honest with you, I don't know everything.
Yeah.
But when there's players that are due up for Hall of Fame, I can't make a judgment. Like Gary, was
is
that?
Fenchick? I can't remember
Fenchick?
how to pronounce it.
But a guy like that, I have no idea who he is as a player. He could have been way before my time when I started
that's
watching.
part of
So
it.
I'm not going to make a judgment on a guy that I don't know anything about. I'm going to have to do some more homework on a player like that. But Ken Anderson, a
Ken
kicker.
Anderson, I know him too, yep.
One of the greatest kickers, majority of his career with the Atlanta Falcons, amongst others. And, he's one of the greats,
Yep,
too. So,
yeah.
I mean, does he belong to be in there? I think so. I think he's one of those type of kickers, those elite kickers throughout his time. And, yeah, he deserves to be in
It's
there.
tough though.
Darren
for
Woodson.
me, for kickers though. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's tougher. I mean, kickers, are they on a different level? Because
yes,
when you talk,
they're a different position completely
Well,
from anybody else.
I know that. Yeah, exactly.
So, but I'm just saying.
Well, no, I know how when you have you have a bigger pool of quarterbacks
Yeah.
than you do say you have kickers. All right, there's your like they say upper echelon quarterbacks or elite kickers or quarterbacks compared to these ones. Now, when you look at Steven Gostkowski or something like that, or some of the other kickers that are upper echelon, people see here and there, or
Justin Tuck.
Morton Anderson, who is a
Justin Tucker.
Hall of Famer. Now, is he in that conversation? I think he isn't in the top 5 elite,
He's got
but
like all-time points.
But I think he's up there.
Oh,
I
he's
just
definitely
don't
up there. I
know.
think he's in there.
I just don't know if he's I don't know how many times he's been up for voting though. So if
No,
there's
this
been a
was-
few, and is it his first time?
It
'Cause
might
I don't
be
ever
his
seen
second
him,
time.
Is it? Yeah, because I don't know. See, there you go. Was Ken Anderson? That takes Cincinnati to a Super Bowl. Deserves. I thought it was kicking. What am I thinking? Were we thinking of Morton Anderson then?
Maybe
Maybe
was
that's what we were
thinking.
thinking. Morton Anderson.
But see, there you go.
There you go.
We don't
See?
know every player.
Mike Tackett
so
does though. See,
just
so
saying.
he's there talking about it. Sorry. So then Ken Anderson. So we don't know.
I
him then
can't
either.
speak on Ken Anderson.
All right. Are the Bengals? Any quarterback takes Cincinnati to a Super Bowl? He was the quarterback to. Was that before Boomer Esiason, or was that a different Super Bowl than the '80s Super Bowl that they went to? I'm
Again,
not
I
sure.
don't know Ken Anderson.
Yeah,
So
yeah. But Darren Woodson, I definitely know, and I think he's in. Andre Johnson, he was a great player. And
I don't know. Here's the thing.
That's a tough one, though. with
Darren
him.
Woodson, I'll tell you right now, he was more of an in-the-box safety.
Yeah.
He didn't make a ton of plays in terms of pass defense. He made some, but I don't think I think he was more known as a hitter, great tackler. I don't know. I mean, like if you put Darren Woodson up against one of the greatest, like Ed Reed, I'm sorry, I don't think Woodson did enough to make it to the Hall. And this is the toughest thing.
What
is
about Brian Dawkins? Put him up with Brian Dawkins.
Brian Dawkins, see, here's the thing, is unlike Woodson, Brian Dawkins did everything well.
Yeah.
He was not only a vicious hitter like Woodson was seen as, But Brian Dawkins also made a lot of pass defense plays, whether it be pass defense or just picks, straight up picks. He was all over the field. So Woodson, I think it would be a tick under Brian Dawkins. He's in the conversation, but again, it has to do if he can come close to that body of work that some of these other greats that are already in. If he can manage to come close, I don't know if he's quite there. But moving on to Steve Atwater.
Yeah.
Steve Atwater was a safety out of last year's class that I thought for sure deserved to be in. He was one of the most vicious safeties I have ever seen. And quite frankly, some of his hits looked so devastating that I thought the player was dead.
Yeah.
I mean, he really unloaded on people. He was another guy, he wasn't just about hitting. I mean, Broncos fans really remember him very well. Delivering massive hits, but also making a ton of plays in the back end. Real quick, Andre Johnson. That's an interesting one too. A lot of people.
That's a borderline one for me.
He's also going to be in that conversation. Andre Johnson. What did he ever win a Super Bowl?
Yeah,
Well,
exactly. That's
no,
the thing. He was on
but-
that Texans team that
right.
really didn't do much.
And that's the thing is, but he was a great receiver during his time.
Yeah.
Now, did he do enough to be close to like the Randy Mosses and
that's the thing where with him, I'd really have to study and look over at all of his
Right.
body of work again. Just to
Yeah,
see,
it's about
because,
body of
again,
work
He didn't exactly
in
have
the
the
end.
best quarterbacks for him for his whole career either.
Yeah.
He did make it work with what he had, but again, he wasn't. It's a tough one for me. Yeah,
Let's go back and do some
part
homework
of
on him.
the Isaac Bruce was part of the greatest show on turf. I mean, I think he's got maybe a chance, but again, Joe and I have had an argument about him too, and how he deserves. Richard Seymour, I don't see him really being part with. I mean, I'd have to
Richard
look at his,
Seymour-
but I don't really see
here's
him.
the
When I think
thing.
Richard Seymour, like you said, I don't see
But
him.
it's-
Hall of Famer. I don't think.
Yeah, it's
I don't know.
tough, and here's the thing is defensive tackle is a tough position to play. So you're not going to see crazy numbers for even the greats that are in there now. But if Seymour has done enough, I mean, he deserves to be in there. Now, here's the thing, too, is you got some guys in there like Tony Baselli. Tony Baselli was one of the best left tackles that I've watched growing up as well. But his career was so short.
Yeah.
Super short of a career, and it's because he had a really bad back, just couldn't keep going on into the league, and he ended up having a short career. Now, because of that, unfortunately, yes, it was due to injury, and yes, you could probably go and say, hey, but he was trending on not allowing this many sacks or whatever, but I'm sorry. I mean, sadly, his career was shortened by injury. So because of that, because he wasn't able to put a full body of work in there and have a long career, I can't put him into the Hall of Fame. It sucks, but if he was healthy and had, say, like a 7, 8 year, 10-year career, maybe he's a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame. Maybe. But because he had a short career, I'm sorry, I just can't put him in. Another guy, Leslie O'Neal. If that's the Leslie O'Neal that I'm thinking about, the fullback for the Chargers, is that who it is?
I don't think so. No.
Could be. I don't know.
No, I don't think it
Just
is.
But if it is or not, I just don't. I don't. If
look
it
it
is, then I'm sorry, but yeah, he might have been one of the
That's
more
a funny
punishing
thing here.
blocking fullbacks. But I don't know if he has enough work to get into the Hall. Mike, maybe you can shed some light on Leslie O'Neal for me.
Yeah, I'm trying to look it up here too quick.
Well, you already brought up Richard Seymour. Cliff
Leslie
Branch.
O'Neal.
Cliff Branch is a really interesting player. He's one of those
D-end.
D-end. Oh, okay,
Yep.
yeah. Now I know who it
/
is.
linebacker. Yep.
Yep. He was crazy good too. So yeah, I mean, you could make an argument, or you can have a disagreement with any one of these players. Really, if you want to kind of argue your point and say why they belong in, why they belong out, but for me, Leslie O'Neal, I think he's done enough to possibly get into the Hall. Cliff Branch is interesting to me. Going back to Cliff here, he's one of those type of players that have been left on the outside looking in for the Hall, but he has better accolades than some of the I think he was wide receiver, Cliff Branch for the Raiders. But he has better accolades than a guy like Dante Stallworth from the Steelers, who's in there. guys like that are already in. He's another player that in some cases, he's got way better stats than some of the guys that are already currently into the Hall. So why isn't he already in there? We don't really know. And this is where we go into that conversation of the panel that's involved with the voting process. There he goes. Mike Tackett just chimed in. Leslie O'Neal has totaled
132.5 career sacks.
That's a lot.
He played for San Diego Chargers and then went to the St. Louis Rams, and then also he ended his career with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
So he was an all AFC linebacker, D end, and there you go. I mean, he's in the conversation again, and we don't know much, but this is football on the nose. So we're definitely trying to find more information, and we share it with each other just like that.
Definitely.
So we're trying to learn more about that.
But that's the thing about a guy
Cliff
like Leslie
Branch,
O'Neal.
like you said, also he's 4-time Pro Bowler,
Yeah.
3-time Super Bowl champ, 3-time All-Pro. That's what's more
There it
important
is
for
right
me.
there.
So he's 12th in sacks.
Leslie O'Neal is 12th all-time in sacks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but if you get that right there, to me, you definitely got the credentials to make it into the
like
Hall
you
of
said,
Fame.
You're hitting your checks
Yep.
on the box, checking the box.
Right.
So
It's
you get
about,
in, so.
and this is the biggest thing. If you're talking about a player, you cannot be talking about the player emotionally. If you're one of the journalists that get to vote these guys in, you got to take that out of the equation. You got to take the Super Bowl championships out of the equation. It's got to be about the total body of work. Have they done enough to be considered one of the all-time greats? And if they meet that criteria, if they're into look at Leslie O'Neal, we just learned it right now.
Yeah.
12th all-time in sacks. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's a shoe-in for Hall of Fame.
Dude, and if you look at was it Cliff Branch? In 1974, he had 1,092 yards that season, 13 touchdowns, and 78 yards per game. So per game. I mean, this guy was pretty crazy in the NFL. And in 1976, 1,111 yards. So in those days, this
That's
guy's
insane.
putting up. That's yardage. Like if I start reading his stats, they're like you'd think it was like Antonio Brown or one of the guys that are playing now.
Right. Because that era, that's way back.
And his yards per catch on average is 17.3. So I
that's
mean, he's
insane.
definitely catching.
He
some
was one of the
deeper balls.
toughest guys to defend.
So I mean, he's getting it all there. So I mean, he's got a 99-yard reception as well too. So I mean, that's in the record books. So at wide
But I mean,
receiver-
if you look at his all-time stats, he's right up there. He has stats that are better than some that are already in the Hall of Fame, and that's what we're trying to digest. That's what we're trying to break down for you know-it-alls out there. Is that they are still to this day a bunch of players that deserve it more actually to be in the Hall of Fame and some of the guys that are already in it. And it's discouraging to some of the fan bases out there. It's discouraging to some of the NFL fans.
Yeah, and possibly that's probably why they're opening up this whole thing possibly for the Centennial 2020 Hall of Fame induction to add all those 10 seniors possibly where some of them might fit the bill here, have been in there so many times.
And Mike Tackett just gave you
in the
a
later
great
pool.
list right now
Yeah, where
to
it's
go off of.
debatable, and that's the question that people have a lot of times because you can always debate. Just like you want to say greatest of all time, you can always debate. Does this guy Hall of Fame worthy? You know, you hear about a lot of quarterbacks all the time now, and other players. I mean, so everything's debatable. You can look at it; it's all about preference. But like you said, maybe the best way to do it. First, set up a checklist and have like the committee here that goes through and judges what they got to do. Maybe they're just a set committee that just votes upon it themselves. Guys that have been coaches, GMs around the game so long and stuff like that know it and know what to look for. Maybe former scouts that know talent even still, evaluation, be able to see those points.
I don't know if this is the right formula or something. Like I'm alluding to what I talked about before, like a threshold. But maybe take like some of those great, like position by position, and you take a chunk of these numbers and try to average them out. Maybe that can be your threshold. Something like that, something to where you can kind of gauge it. And it's more of a not really cut and dry, but it's more of a guideline that they can follow whether a guy does deserve to be in the conversation or not.
And then one other thing you brought up about championships. I I think a lot of them are, especially players or even people around now about. They look at the NBA with the championships because that's
Right.
what they hear too. Because a lot of things, listen, a lot of fans aren't diehard fans. A lot of fans aren't going to sit there and try and read all the blogs. Fans aren't going to do a lot of this and this. They're called fans for a reason. They're fanatics. They're their team. They're over crazy about their team.
Yeah.
Whether they can name everybody on the team or not. You know what I mean? So when they say they listen to ESPN radio or NFL, network or this and this, and they hear something about somebody or this and this, like you hear it constantly. That's why I'm bringing up the NBA.
Yeah.
Championships. What's LeBron without the championships? Chasing Michael Jordan. Got to get this many. You got the big threes trying to get together. Golden State, can they hold on and win this many championships? Are they the new Bulls? Are they this? And you constantly hear that when that's a roster that's much more reduced than what the NFL is, and where you're dealing with 5 main players on the court at all times on each team, deciding in how this game is played, and within – was it 24 minutes or 48 minutes? I forget how much it
something
is
like that. I think it's
altogether.
24.
4 quarters of 12 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a lot more reduced kind of thing. So, yeah, that one individual person is going to matter into that particular championship. You know what I'm saying? If you get 3 decent guys, like they said, you get a big 3, you can possibly just win a championship. So that would be a greater chance of being a basketball Hall of Famer, per se, possibly, and make a difference there than somebody that's on a 53-man roster who's an elite player, but the rest of the team's garbage. You know what I'm saying? It's tougher to be noticed and things like that. Like your Barry Sanders, he happened to be a running back and was an easily noticeable position and things he did, but he was on a bad team for most of his career. Couldn't get out of the contract. So I think that's why that last year he was just like, you know what? I can't get traded. I can't do this. I gotta go.
And the real reason, Barry Sanders,
I think.
Barry Sanders wrote a book, and in that book, he finally gave out some clues onto why he really retired, and it is as simple as this: because the Lions never built around him. They never. The Detroit Lions back then did not care about wins. They cared about filling seats, getting money. That's all they cared about. And Barry Sanders, throughout his tenure with Detroit, all he wanted so badly to win a Super Bowl, so badly, and that's why he kept grinding and kept doing everything possible that he could do. But I'm sorry, it's the ultimate team sport in the NFL, and you can't just rely on one guy to carry your whole franchise. And unfortunately, that's what Detroit did. And because when he turned 31 years old, he did not report to training camp that season. He did not report to Detroit Lions at all. Instead, he got on a plane and flew away and sent and faxed a letter back, not to Detroit Lions. He faxed a letter to the local news and said, "I'm done." He just announced his retirement through the news, not even through the Detroit Lions. They had to find out through a paper, that Barry Sanders officially has retired. And it's because of the fact that they did not build around him. It's because they weren't doing anything but just trying to make money off of Barry Sanders. And Barry Sanders wanted them to build the team around him so then they could possibly win a Super Bowl. That's it. That was his dream as a kid. And just like many of these, pretty much just all of them, every NFL player has the same dream. Everybody wants to win the Super Bowl. But if your team isn't behind you, like Detroit wasn't, Barry Sanders just gave up and said, you know what? They're not going to ever build around me. It's been long enough. I'm done. Had a good career. And Barry Sanders was unlike any other athlete, too, that I've ever seen. Very unselfish. Did not care about money. Did not care about the accolades. Like there was even a chance for him to become the NFL MVP against Christian Okoye. There was another a Chiefs running back. He needed 10. I think he needed like 10 yards. That at the end of the season, it was the last game of the season. He needed 10 yards, and trying to remember the head coach at that time, Martz. I want to say something
Mike
like
Martz?
that. Mike Martz. No, not Mike Martz. I don't know. I can picture him. I just can't think of his name. But Barry Sanders is on the way off because he also played special teams as well. And he went up to Barry and said, Barry, you need 10 yards to win the rushing title for the year. You want to go back in, just get the 10 yards, and then we'll call it a day. Barry Sanders did not care. He's like, no, let the younger guy go out there and finish the game.
Mm-hmm.
He did not care about accolades. Didn't care about money. He was just a competitor and the ultimate professional, and that to me was amazing. So all he wanted was a Super Bowl, and Detroit would not let him, not even help him to try to get that, and that's why Barry Sanders just called it quits. You know, at the age of 31.
And bring up something here about Ken Anderson so he can fill us in here too. He was a 4-time Pro Bowler. He was a one-time All-Pro. He was a one-time MVP of the league. He won the 1975 Walter Payton Award.
Okay.
He also won a 1981 Burt Bell Award. In 1981, he also was the Comeback Player of the Year and also the AP Offensive Player of the Year. And he wore number 14. So, I mean, it's what Aaron D. Dalton happens to be wearing right now. So, if you look at his stats altogether, he's got career 33,000 stats, or yards, rather. Yeah, 33,000 yards. He's got a 60% completion percentage and 197 touchdowns, 160 interceptions. So, he's like balanced in between there. You know, it's almost not like a 60-40 in interception touchdown ratio. 33,000. So, I mean, his accolades enough for being MVP of the league is good here for him. Pro Bowls mattered more then, and he had his top season was 3,169 yards. So that's who he is for the Cincinnati Bengals. Played with the Bengals his whole career. Like Mike Tackett said, he brought them to a Super Bowl. So I mean, he's definitely debatable. Again, that's just some of it. I haven't got a chance to analyze it yet, and then put through in comparison with some others. And but definitely, truly one of the better Cincinnati Bengals that have been out there, you know what I'm saying? So when you try to think of them,
it's not really a laundry list.
Yeah, not a very big list. But that's our Hall of Fame talk. So I mean, it's an interesting concept here. They're going to vote on it in August 2nd. Whether they're going to do this, I think they probably will. I mean, because it's a nice talking point, and
it would be nice to catch up on some
in the pool that are in there that can go for. To be in there that aren't in there,
and I hope.
They decide to go? Can we recant some of them now? Take them out. The recant and Canton.
That's right.
Let's just take them out.
The
now.
recant
Do they
and
really
Canton.
deserve to be?
You know
in
what?
There? It's the recount.
You don't really meet the criteria. You're kicked out. Give me your jacket. They just go in and just take their jackets.
Oh man, there you go. All right, so next it's our time for our segment. In the know, fact of the day. It's our fact of the day, Joe. All right, here we go. Let's kick it in here. All right, 5 teams. So you're talking about players retired and things. This is what I came up with here. All right, 5 teams don't have any players' numbers retired. They are due to a lack of history. Baltimore, Houston, Jacksonville, now the newer teams.
2 new, yeah.
The other two are because the teams don't believe in such an honor, like the Dallas Cowboys and the Oakland Raiders. The Chicago Bears have the most retired numbers of any NFL team with 13.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting fact here is that some people think that every team, just might retire
has a ring of honor
and stuff like that.
Right.
Dallas and Oakland don't just because of the tradition, and they don't believe that that's just an honor they do.
Yeah, and that's the same thing for I know for the Oakland Raiders, they don't retire numbers. They actually reuse them all the time, just like it was stating there. So like you think about a guy like Charles Woodson, who's like more of a recent retiree for the Raiders. Well, someone's wearing number 24 this year, so they don't ever retire, and the Cowboys don't retire as well and I think it's because they've been around so long that I don't think they have room to put some of these players that they would like to retire.
I think that too. They're trying to show and flex there even a bit that listen, if you're a Dallas Cowboy or if you're an Oakland Raider, that's enough, and that means something there too. Because look at the players we possibly have in the Hall of Fame, or this and this, blah blah, and why even restricted to just a number? Remember and that player.
This is what I've always wondered too. It's like, what do you do if you're those teams out there that retire jerseys? Like, pretty soon you're going to run out of numbers, right?
Yeah, you would think if they did a bunch. Like, we're going to start to check with the Bears now, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
not to mention numbers, but like, where are you going to put all these retired numbers that they usually put them up inside the ring of the stadiums and everything like that? Or maybe they have like a small museum built in somewhere or something like. So it's like, eventually you run out of space. And unless you plan on building a new stadium, you kind of run out of it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so that's our fact of the day. And Joe and I have been doing lists for the last month and a half or so, 2 months, and we decided to come up here. We're moved with all offense. We're done with that, and we rounded up our defense here instead of did individual defensive players. We decided to come up with our 2019 top 10 projected defenses now of this coming season.
And this is a little bit different than our offenses. Our offense, we kind of broke it up position by position. We did the quarterbacks and the running backs and the offensive lines, wide receiver, tight end, and that was about it. So unlike what we did in the past, we decided to do basically the team as a whole on the defensive side of the ball. Sorry to disappoint anybody that was looking forward to position battles. But we decided to do team defense, so this will end our segment on 2019 top 10 projected defenses. But to start you all off, on the number 10 top 10 projected defense
All right, here we go. It is top 10 projected defense. The Indianapolis Colts coming in at number 10. This team was a special team at the last end stretch of the season last year. They were kind of a surprise team or up-and-coming team. Like I said, towards the tail end, we had Russell Baxter from Fansided and CBS Sports, and he's written for many other things for the NFL. He had brought it when we asked him, like, who's the team you're looking at right now that it could be surprising or on the up and coming, and it was the Indianapolis Colts. And a year before that, they didn't have Andrew Luck. They didn't have an offensive line. What do? They attack the offensive line in the draft, and they go out and get some pieces on defense. Andrew Luck comes back, looks a little shaky the first couple weeks, comes back in like week 3 or 4, boom, looks like the old Andrew Luck, starts hitting it up to everybody out there, and here come the Colts. And so not only on the offense, making the offense look good, the defense is settling in. And Darius Leonard, what a great pick there, too, for them. And, I mean, player.
That's a funny thing is that Darius Leonard kind of got shafted last year in his rookie year. He deserved to be in the Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
And really did get shafted. He was one of the best linebackers last year, even though it was his rookie year. Darius Leonard coming back for another season. And this team is not only stacked at all kinds of positions throughout this defense, but they're very young. And that's going to be scary because every single year that passes, they're going to keep building on this defense, and all these youngsters are going to get better and better. You look at this team right now, and they do have a couple of veterans on the defensive line, and Jabal Sheard and Justin Houston. Many remember Justin Houston as that crazy pass rusher for the Chiefs, getting a ton of sacks. Here's the thing for these vets, these older vets, that are getting up there in age, they still can perform, Jabal Sheard and Justin Houston. However, they got to stay healthy. That's the biggest key for them. If they do, they're going to wreak a lot of havoc in the backfield. And you look at the D tackle position. Tyquan Lewis made a name for himself last year. He was also another rookie that came on strong. Danico Autry, kind of like an under the radar type of D tackle. He's an all around guy. Doesn't make a lot of splash plays, but plays well nonetheless. And then you look at their linebacking core. We already brought up Leonard, but Anthony Walker at middle linebacker, another guy, another very young guy, a rookie that came in and also played well above expectations. And here's the thing: this is why we kind of got them at number 10, is because they played really as a overall defense. They were one of the better defenses, top 10, top 15 in that area in all categories. Now coming into this year, they got another year all together. They've already developed chemistry amongst each other, and they're getting better throughout another offseason. You look at a guy like Zaire Franklin, a guy who you're like, who the hell's that? Mm-hmm. But he's an outside linebacker for the Colts who's another young stud playing and doing a very good job there. They added a lot of depth in the draft this past season in that category, and they already have young guys that are playing well above the rim if you wanted to go the NBA route. But cornerback, this is a position that's another position under the radar. We just heard a few weeks ago that Kenny Moore, one of their corners, is now the highest paid slot corner in the NFL. Mm-hmm. and there's a reason for it. He's one of the best slot corners, if not the best. So even though these guys are not huge names right now, they're playing well above their expectations on the football field. Malik Hooker, the free safety that they got 2 or 3 years ago, he's playing extremely well. High number 1 pick for them. Of course, he did come into a little bit of problems with injuries, but now is starting to play healthy. Now is starting to play a lot better. Amongst some of these other guys, Pierre Desir, they just kind of added from Seattle in terms of depth. But watch out for this young, improved team. They could, quite honestly, reach number 10, maybe even higher.
All right, here on our 2019 top 10 projected defenses, we have the Colts at number 10, and next up for number 9 is the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just jump right in.
Jump right in.
The New Orleans Saints, some people were a little down on them, and quite frankly, I was as well this past year. I thought they were going to really come on and be the lockdown, shut-down type of defense they were 2 years ago. With the same people, mind you. And it wasn't the case early on. The first half of the season was very dismal. I mean, I don't know what was happening. They couldn't really stop the run. They were giving up every ball thrown up into the air. Touchdowns were happening on them. Huge chunks of highlighted plays. And I saw a couple of games, and I'm like, this isn't the same defense that I saw 2 years ago. What's going on here? They got the same personnel. I don't get it. Ken Crawley was one of the best corners 2 years ago. Last year, he couldn't stop or knock a ball away, couldn't pick a ball off, couldn't do anything. So there was a lot of concern, especially if you're a Saints fan, that you're like, where's my defense? These guys are the same guys. What happened? Well, I don't know what it was early on, but they got it corrected fairly quickly in the second part of the season. They started to tighten things up. They started to get a little bit better. They pulled off a trade before the trade deadline for Eli Apple. You know how I feel, and I know how you feel about him. You're a Giants fan, so you didn't like him in New York, and I didn't like him at all, even coming out of college from Ohio State. A guy that kind of is a little too handsy for my liking, and somehow I guess the Saints really liked what he had to offer, and he kind of played a little bit better than when he was in New York. Now, maybe it's because of the style of defense, kind of fit him a little bit better, but he's still, to me, to this day, is not the answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when he's because I think in New York he wasn't exactly the number 1 because they had Janoris Jenkins.
Number 2.
He was definitely number 2 still there, but I think, he just feels a little more comfortable there. You've got Marcus Williams in the back end with Marshawn Lattimore, too, over there. And like you said, with their kind of slow start, these guys started out a bit slow, and those were the 2 young guys that exploded around the scene, though, too. But when you have such a great season that first season, and they started off slower, it looked shaky. You're like, oh, was this a flash in the pan? But they started to gradually come back, work back into things. Not a stellar season that they had their rookie season, but still a nice, solid season for them. And altogether, this is one of the things that we talked about last week was is Marcus Davenport now going to live up to that number 1 pick where they had to trade up, and they didn't have to trade up, but they decided to trade up to get him because they thought they might.
Oh no, they had to trade up.
To get him, but they did it because that's the guy that they definitely wanted. And but this now, because they didn't get a number 1 pick this year because of it, and he was injured last year. I mean, he's got to start doing it here. On the other side here with Cameron Jordan.
Here's the thing about Marcus Davenport, though. Everybody knew coming into the draft he was going to be a top 15 type of first-round pick. That's why the Saints felt compelled to trade up and get him, because they needed another pass rusher opposite Cameron Jordan. And they didn't really have an answer there. So I know that last year they had Okafor.
Oh, yeah.
And he was, but he didn't really do the job well enough. Marcus Davenport was very raw coming out of the draft, so they knew, even if they were trading up to get him, they knew that they had a very raw prospect, a guy that they had to groom. And I think he's through last offseason and into this offseason, Cameron Jordan really took him under his wing, has been teaching him a lot of pass rush moves. He's gotten a lot stronger. That was one of his major weaknesses coming out of the draft, is he needed to be stronger. He needed to be a little bit more game ready in terms of mentality. And he had to also learn a new defense, mind you, as a rookie. So I think coming in on a second offseason, I think it's going to fit him well. I think he's going to make a a big impact for this defensive line. And also, this defensive line didn't just improve there by having Davenport start there, but also the D tackle position. Through free agency, the Saints were lucky enough to get Malcolm Brown from the Patriots, who I was kind of high on coming out of Texas when he was drafted. A very strong guy, and you team him up with a guy like Sheldon Rankins. I mean, oh my God. I mean, the interior of this defense is going to be tenacious. It's going to be tough to block all these guys. You got the 2 edge rushers. You got the guys that can push up the middle. It's going to be a show in New Orleans for this defense. And also, you look at linebacking core. You know, look at a guy like Alex Anzalone. He was hurt last year, later in the season, but he is one of the top-tier type of linebackers. He can cover, he can stop the run, he can do it all. A.J. Klein, a guy who came over from the Carolina Panthers, a veteran, he's going to fill that strong side linebacker role for them. And Demario Davis, an old vet from the Jets. He's played elsewhere, and now he's going to come back again for another season. One of the older vets holding it down, that linebacking core. And Jim just mentioned the secondary. It's a deep secondary. They have a lot of talent back there. Look at Von Bell, Marcus Williams. He's coming into his own now, especially after that debacle, missed tackle, like going into. Yeah, we're not going to talk. But, they have talent, and I think they improved their defense, especially up front on that defensive line. So I'm looking for this team to take another step forward and become one of those shutdown defenses like they did 2 years ago.
So there we go. We have the Indianapolis Colts at number 10. Number 9 is the New Orleans Saints. And moving into the number 8 spot, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers, Joe.
The steel curtain. I don't know if it's going to be much of a steel curtain, though. I mean, here's the thing about the Steelers is last year, what was their biggest weakness was pass defense. They've done their fair share. They go ahead 2 years ago and they get Joe Hayden to try to kind of lock down one of those cornerback positions. And even after the draft, even after the offseason, they were looking for an answer opposite him. We noticed that the Artie Burns experiment, the young was supposedly a young stud coming out of the draft a couple years ago for them, 2-3 years ago, was supposed to be the answer opposite Joe Hayden. And quite honestly, he's failed miserably at that. So they go ahead and you look at this, the secondary now, their best player right now, is Sean Davis, the safety in the back there. He's a phenomenal player, the best secondary personnel that they have. You look at a guy like Steven Nelson, who they just grabbed in free agency from the Kansas City Chiefs. Steven Nelson, I mean, if that's your answer to fulfill that cornerback position opposite Hayden, I think it's not going to be any better, to be honest with you. It might even be worse. Steven Nelson was picked on heavily when he was in Kansas City and didn't really do his job there. So I don't see that continuing here in Pittsburgh. I think they're still going to struggle with that intermediate to deep ball game, although they will have to stay away from Mr. Sean Davis because he will put the smack down. He will make a play on that ball.
And
but overall,
they focus in here on linebackers with that 3-4 defense. They draft Devin Bush here, so they go with him. They've got T.J. Watt there, too, who he was going neck and neck with his brother on stats last year, too. So it was pretty nuts. So that's where their strength here, too. So, and when you look at this team, what do they usually do? They draft great wide receivers out of nowhere. They just know to find the knack for receivers, running backs, and linebackers. They love their linebackers. You still got a strong line there as well, too. That's going to be their main focus. They're sort of built in a sense, not exactly like the Texans, I'd say, but that's kind of their main strength.
I would say it's exactly like the Texans because
that's what I'm saying.
This is
similar, but
this is a defense that does the same thing the Houston Texans do. They will shut down your run, no problem, and they pass rush your quarterback like crazy, and that's what they're going to continue to do. Now, just like the Texans, they're a little bit weak in the secondary, and that's where they're apt to get thrown on a lot. This defense up front is pretty much locked down now. They've been missing Ryan Shazier because of injury, and now they're in hopes that this draft pick in Devin Bush, who looks like lights out. He is not the typical body type that the Steelers go for in a middle linebacker. He's a lot lighter. He's very fast. He makes great tackling plays. He's actually and he's also really good at pass coverage. So they're going with more of a sideline-to-sideline type of linebacker, not really more like a thumper. Ryan Shazier, he was bigger than him, but still could do the same things, could do everything well. So they're hoping that with Devin Bush added to the middle of this squad, that it's going to really lock up the intermediate portion of their defense, and as well as you look at this front line, this D-line here, one of the best 3-4 D-lines in the league.
There you go. So there's our top 10 projected defenses here in 2019. We're at number 10, the Colts, then the Saints, then the Pittsburgh Steelers, and next coming in at number 7 is the Minnesota Vikings.
Minnesota Vikings is interesting because, Jim, I mean, what happened last year? I mean, this is a team that had when you looked at them on paper last season, you're like, where's the weakness? Strong at linebacking core, strong up front, strong in the back end, strong at corners. There really wasn't a weakness on paper for this team. And 2 years ago, they were just destroying offenses. It was super hard to put any kind of points on this defense. And now, it's like, now it makes you wonder. They basically have the same personnel as 2 years ago. Last year was kind of like a little bit of a faulty season for them on defense. And again, here we are, third year in. You know, you look at the contract for Cousins there,
Yep,
and
Cousins,
you know,
so
it's
the
getting
clock's ticking now and
it's
everything,
getting
yep.
to it's the end of his contract, and you got to wonder, this is where the window's going to fall apart if they can't get either a future quarterback after this season, or maybe they can't even. I mean, maybe they can't even re-sign Cousins because I mean, if Cousins was managed to dupe the Minnesota Vikings into giving this guy $30 million a year, just wait to see what he wants. When his contract is up. You know, plus when you got guys like Aaron Rodgers, you know, Russell Wilson, who've now freaking set that bar so high in the $35 million range. But yeah, the window is definitely shrinking. They still have the great players in like Xavier Rhodes. But here's the interesting thing is they drafted a corner last year in Mike Hughes, who was injured all season long. A lot of people were wondering, well, who's going to play opposite Rhodes? He was supposed to, couldn't come back from injury, and they had to go along with the likes of Trey Waynes, who now I'm hearing right now is in the trade market. Minnesota Vikings are absolutely looking to possibly trade him away to get compensation for him because, quite honestly, he didn't pan out to be the corner that he was supposed to be. But, you know, another funny thing, too, is you go into the free agency and I'm trying to remember his name right now, but Anthony Barr. Yeah, okay. He went in free agency. He agreed on a contract to go to the Jets. Imagine that if that actually stayed that way, they get C.J. Mosley and Anthony Barr in free agency. Absolutely insane.
Jets might be on this list. Then.
He kind of just backed out last second. I mean, he verbally agreed he was going to go sign the contract, and then like, no, I'm going to stay in Minnesota. So that's interesting. This team is very solid up and down the roster here. They don't really have a lot of holes. Anthony Barr does return again. So it begs the question. You know, you look at Daniel Hunter, too, and we talked about this, too, with Cousins' contract expiring. Daniel Hunter is going to be looking for a huge deal. You know, a lot of these guys like Linval Joseph, all these players that, you know, have been there. And even Everson Griffin just redid his contract. So a lot of money being spread around, but the window is shrinking heavily.
Yeah, absolutely. You said they did take a step back a little bit last year. It was kind of confusing. Like, even Harrison Smith, I saw him make a lot of just bad plays or just getting beat at times or missed tackles, which that doesn't usually happen with him. But they have such talent on this team. It's hard to deny them that they're going to be one of the top defenses in his league.
They got to come back.
And they have to. But this is the time to do it. They still got a great core here. The only thing that's a problem here with this team is that they're in a tough division. Green Bay Packers are getting better now. Finally, Chicago Bears are the cream that's rise to the top now. So you have a tough division here that these teams are all going to be battling. Detroit's just left on the backside a little bit there too, but they're trying to
rebuild.
They're trying to rebuild and get back there. So, but this is a division of three major teams here, all vying for a spot here. And Minnesota Vikings are still a top defense to look out for. That's why we're putting them here at number 7. All right, now moving out next into number 6. The 6th spot, it might be a surprise to some people, or it might not, though, but we're looking at the Cleveland Browns, who everybody likes to win the Super Bowl this year. Yes, that's right. You know what I mean? So they go from 1 year celebrating and having a parade
We won a game. Everybody get Bud Light.
Yeah, to winning a game. And then now everybody, is going to win the Super Bowl now because they have Odell Beckham Jr. Okay, so with the Cleveland Browns here at number 6, can't say enough. They've got talent, even though they traded away Jabril Peppers, but they did get Olivier Vernon. I mean, they rich get richer. You know what I'm seeing with this team? You know, but everybody wants to talk about the offense and the weapons that they have there, too, with having Jarvis Landry, having David Njoku, who says he's looking for 20 touchdowns this year, and Odell Beckham Jr. here on the offensive side. You know, Nick Chubb. You can name all the offensive guys.
Tons of them.
But the defensive side has been pretty scary, and you saw a little bit of it last year and what they were able to do.
Yeah.
Now you even add some other players and Olivier Vernon and such, and watch out. This is going to be one of those upper echelon defenses that are going to scare some people.
That not a lot of people are betting on right now.
No, and that's the thing. This team would keep their offense in the games based on their defense. So they were still playing lights out. It's just their offense wasn't starting to catch up. Now the offense is caught up.
Yeah, and
so
you go back to last
this is where your
season
team's gonna
when they
start
were
winning.
playing the Steelers in Pittsburgh and almost pulled off the win.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and that's not. And Baker Mayfield wasn't even starting yet. You know, the Hugh Jackson debacle and Todd Haley, they were at each other's
They're still
throats.
talking about Hugh right
And
now,
stuff.
Joe.
Yeah, I know. It's still not in a
can't
good
get
way,
over it.
though. Not in
No.
a good way. But you go back to that, and that's where you started to notice something with this defense and how much better they've gotten in the past couple of seasons. Now you go to this offseason, and oh my God, what did they do? They just, I'm sorry, but kudos to John Dorsey. I'm saying GM of the year already. This guy has done nothing but made brilliant moves and the right moves at the right time. You have a guy in a stud like Myles Garrett playing on one end. You pull off a trade. You get Olivier Vernon, who I think fits perfectly with this 4-3 defense. And I think he's going to revitalize his career in Cleveland. Sheldon Richardson, they get out of free agency to kind of fill that void at D tackle. And they have Larry Ogunjobi, who's one of the more underrated D tackles on this team. Right there, and then super solid defensive line to come right after you. And then you look at their linebacking core. Another stud of a linebacking core here. Joe Schobert playing middle linebacker. Christian Kirksey at weak side linebacker. It's just amazing what they've been able to put together here.
Pay attention to last year.
Yeah, and then you look at the corners. You know, everybody knows Denzel Ward by now. Denzel Ward, one of the lockdown, shutdown corners in this league, one of the best. He returns. And something that nobody anticipated. Everybody's wondering, what are they going to do with that opposite side? They had an older veteran trying to start there last year, but a draft pick by the name of Greedy Williams. Now, if you're a cornerback and your first name's Greedy, that's a great name to be in that position. Greedy Williams slid heavily into the second round. Nobody anticipated that. He was a first-round talent, but everybody was worried about his lanky body. They were worried about, can he withstand a whole season, the physicalness and all that. Greedy Williams is super fast. He can stay with anybody. The only thing, he needs to get strong. Now, that's what he's going to do right now in the OTAs and training camp. If he can develop enough muscle to kind of bump and run some of these receivers that he's going to be going up against, then watch out for this defense. I think it all going to come together. And then you look on the back end, just like Jim mentioned before, they traded away the safety. They got Demarius Randall, who's been around in this game, was one of the best defensive secondary defensive backs for the Green Bay Packers, has now moved over to the Cleveland Browns. He's going to help fulfill that role at the safety position, as well as yet another ex-Packer, and Morgan Burnett, a veteran, who still has some gas in the tank. And right there and then, you just notice, look how complete this defense is. And I think this really does hinge on Greedy Williams. If he can stay healthy, if he can develop enough muscle, enough build before the season starts, oh my goodness, this defense is going to be electric. Watch out for them.
And Odell loved it because the LSU boys are all brought together now. So he was just shouting.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. If their
it.
defense last year was able to do what it did, and then this year they not only improved the defense, but guess what? They also really improved
That's
the
what I'm
offense.
saying.
Watch out.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. So here we go. Now we're cracking the top 5 of our top 10 projected defenses for next year. Moving into the top 5 spot, it is the Green Bay Packers. All right, the Pack Attack comes in here. They have a much improved defense now this year. You know, it's they've been sneakily getting younger. You know, one of the complaints that we had
right.
about them is they were keeping one of the older guys around. Clay Matthews, you could only shift him around so many spots and places. You put him off the line, you put him back in the linebacker, put him back at the end, and now he's gone completely.
Right.
And so now they keep getting youth in there, getting younger. They make some trades too. They move away, Clinton Dix, and they've got a lot of youth here now with this team, Joe.
Sure do. I mean, you look at this team right now, and like Jim was saying, they've been kind of quietly assembling a very good defense. You know, you look at Kenny Clark, one of the best D tackles in this league. Doesn't give him enough credit. Mike Daniels as well. I mean,
Great player up in the interior. Unbelievable.
Good luck
Things he's
blocking
doing.
him.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to see, like, you know what I really would like to see, and this is going like to Pro Bowl. You know what I mean? I don't even really want to see the Pro Bowl game anymore because it just doesn't mean anything. It's kind of lackluster. Well, let's just do drills all the time. How about we do competition? How about we go, like, who's the best
see what they
lineman?
do. Like,
Let's
push
do
it.
man-on-man.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, blocking drills. You know,
Put 'em
Mike
in the
Daniels
octagon.
against Taylor Lewan. Let's go. You know, so it would be really interesting to see something like that. But they played in a 3-4 defense. They ended up picking up Preston Smith, you know, from the Washington Redskins, a really good linebacker, fits this defense to a T. You look at Blake Martinez, who's going to stay there in that middle linebacker role, great linebacker. Kyle Fackrell, you're like, Kyle, what? Yet it's not like, you
Holy
know,
Fackrell.
it's a different name. You're not used to hearing it, but let me tell you this: he's a very good linebacker. Watch out for him. We also what the Packers did, which was unique, is when they needed cornerback help in the same draft 2 years ago. They drafted not one, but they drafted back-to-back corners. And it's a mouthful, Alexander. And Kevin King is coming into this. Josh Jackson was also drafted. I really see a big year for him. Kevin King has made his fair share of highlights as well. So they are 3 deep with talent in terms of cornerback play. And the one thing that I heavily praise the Packers on this year is in the draft. You know, they already knew they were moving on from Clinton Dix. And somehow they managed to end up with what I think is going to develop into one of the best safeties in the NFL, and Darnell Savage Jr. This kid, he was injured almost all of in the college, in his senior year of college football. But this kid, when he's healthy, he's very dynamic at safety. He's super good. He makes all the tackles. He makes plays in the passing game. Watch out for him. And they also teamed him up with a very young stud from Chicago, and Adrian Amos, another stud. They managed to team up these two guys. Adrian Amos is going to take Darnell Savage under his wing a little bit here and kind of help develop him a little bit faster. This team, if it comes together chemistry-wise, they are going to be one of the best in the NFL.
All right, there you go. Here's our top 10 projected defenses for 2019. In the top 5, moving on to number 4, and we have
none other
than the Buffalo Bills.
Circle the wagons,
there
everyone.
We go, moving up into the top 5 spots. Some of you might think we're a little crazy stuff here.
It's okay.
But again, they're another team that has been kind of sneakily going in there, because maybe I think some of it is because they're an AFC team, AFC East rather, and they just don't get the type of love that they probably appreciate sometimes being there with the Patriots. But a lot of times they're making big plays with some of the guys they have. I mean, Tre'Davious White, wow, what a player this guy was doing. Even Jordan Poyer was making some nice moves. Micah Hyde, that guy was like an interception fool. You know, this guy was going off. And they go in big draft day. Ed Oliver. They go out and get Ed Oliver in the draft. Can you believe that he fell that far to them, and it was there just salivating for him?
Yes.
Boom. Yes.
I can actually believe that he fell that far.
Boom, right there for him. Grabbed him. I know a lot of people wanted him, and right there for the Bills to have him. Boom, grabbed him. And this defense looks poised to be one of the top defenses of the league. And don't forget about just another year just remained from Tremaine Edmonds they grabbed there too. So a lot of depth and a lot of great talent on this defense.
Yeah, you look at this overall. They also got Star Latulele D tackle from the Carolina Panthers, which is interesting because he was one hell of a D tackle when he was down there in Carolina. He's going to come up here and he could even start by training by week 1. I'll be quite honest with you. Starlo Toure is going to help compete with this defense, the defensive tackle spot, going to create a lot of push up the middle like he did in Carolina. And Ed Oliver, I mean, to get a need, actually. It was a major need for them as that D tackle. And to be quite honest, everybody knew that Quinnen Williams was going to be the first D tackle taken. So well gifted athletically. But Ed Oliver is super strong. He's a little under the weight class, if you will, that a lot of teams happen to like at D tackle. But so wasn't Aaron Donald. And a lot of people have kind of made, assumptions and have made comparisons that he's kind of like Aaron Donald because he's around the same exact weight. He's super strong like him, very athletic like him. However, it's a tale of two stories here. As Ed Oliver is coming from a smaller school. He didn't face nearly the competition that Aaron Donald did, so therefore isn't getting that exact same comparison in my book. Ed Oliver, I don't know how well he's going to fit into this defense. I know he's going to be like a pass rushing D tackle. I'm going to be interested to see how well he plays against NFL caliber offensive linemen to play against the run. That's what I'm interested to see. If he can do that well, then I could see a very good career for him. But you also look at, Jerry Hughes. He's one of the dynamic pass rushers for this team. Trent Murphy comes from the Washington Redskins to be that other pass rusher on the opposite side. Trent Murphy, I'm sorry, but he's a really good addition for this team, and it's going to help balance this defensive line. You also look at a guy like Matt Milano playing linebacker. Lorenzo Alexander is another guy who just kind of just rushes all the time. He gets after the quarterbacks more times than not. So this defense, Jordan Poyer on the back end with Micah Hyde, this team is deadly. You might overlook the Buffalo Bills because, they got Josh Allen. It's only his second year. Is the Cole Beasley, John Brown, equation, is this going to all work out? Are they going to develop chemistry? But listen, they improved the offense. They still have somewhat the same defense. They filled holes that were there on defense. This team is going to be have another top 10 season.
All right, moving on in our top 10 list is the number 3 spot, and it's the Dallas Cowboys.
Dallas Cowboys are one of the interesting defenses this year. I really think that. You look at their team. You look at what they did last year, and they drafted Kyle Van Der Esch. Came on very strong in his rookie year. Pro Bowl level type of play, too. I mean, you pair him up with Jalen Smith. I mean, this is a deadly defense right now. They re-sign, I'm losing my mind right here. They ended up going ahead and they re-sign, what's it?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No, I don't know who they re-signed.
DeMarcus Lawrence.
Oh, okay, all right.
DeMarcus Lawrence. I don't know how we forgot that name, but DeMarcus Lawrence, one of the premier pass rushers in the league, he ends up getting re-signed. Now, here's the thing: is they gave him a lot of money. Pretty soon, money's getting real thin right now in Dallas because they still want to re-sign Dak Prescott to a huge contract. They want to re-sign Amari Cooper, who thinks he's the best receiver in the league. I don't know why. Somebody gave him something, slipped him something in his drink, but and then Zeke needs to get paid.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, but the number one guy you should be paying right now is Zeke. He's the guy that this offense runs through. And without him, this team, I don't think, goes very far. But we're looking at the defense here. Antoine Woods, decent D tackle for them. Robert Quinn is interesting. They pulled off a trade to get Robert Quinn for Dallas because they needed another pass rusher opposite DeMarcus. And I'm not really sure how this is going to work out. Robert Quinn, he's a little bit long in his tooth. He's slowed down a little bit. He's played most of his career with the Rams. And I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be able to give them that boost for pass rushing. But the linebacking core is going to hold it down. The secondary. The secondary has really come into its own. You look at a guy like Byron Jones, who has been moved around like a chess piece in previous seasons, now is finally at home at corner and is locking it down, one of the better corners now in this league. Xavier Woods at free safety, hard-hitting guy, very physical. Jeff Heath, he's another kind of in-the-box safety who does his job well. Chinendobe Awuzie, The other corner there is locked down as well. They have a very nice young team that they've kind of developed, and Anthony Brown as well at corner. Watch out for this team this year. We really think they're going to make another step forward and be right up there in the top 5 conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. The Dallas Cowboys, again, Leighton Vander Esch is able to jump in there. Sean Lee constantly getting injured nonstop, and he was like a factor that if he wasn't in the game, it was almost a guaranteed loss for the Dallas Cowboys. So they get Leighton Vander Esch, their nice pick in the first round last year, pans out for him. Jalen Smith, a great player too as well. I love the linebacking core that they have here, looking good. DeMarcus Lawrence had a put up or shut up year. He put up, stayed healthy for his main thing, able to get paid. But again, now their next thing they need to do is take care of the offensive positioning and look at quarterback and who they're going to pay there and stuff. All right, so
Absolutely.
moving in at number 2, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars now. And again, this could be a little bit of surprise for some people just because on where the team ended up finishing and stuff and how kind of a letdown this team was last year. They still have a lot of decent players. You know, some of them are getting a little older, but you can't forget that the talent that they have here, and they still played sneakily. Again, a lot of these defenses, because we're talking about just straight up defense, not full team. They were really making things happen last year, and they were up in the upper echelons of the league last year, and unnoticed because of some of the things that had happened. Jalen Ramsey running his mouth about a lot of different players and quarterbacks and getting burned at times here and there. But they did play a lot of teams hard and held them to a very minimal points too at times. You know,
Despite a terrible offense.
Exactly.
Despite them being on the field all the time.
So watch out for this team again. They're going to bounce back. They have a quarterback now there too that will keep the defense off the field a little more, so then they can.
I think
rest.
it's a lot more.
So then they can rest a little bit too. So that's the problem too, because you got to look at the strength of this defense, how good it was when their back is to the wall a lot of times because of a 3-and-out by Blake Bortles or a dumb pick and stuff like that. This is going to change a little bit here now with these guys. So I like Jacksonville at number 2. Joe, what do you think here?
Yeah, and it goes right along with this offense. Offense plays just as much of a part as defense does on the field. And if you don't have a good offense, like we noticed with Jacksonville last year, the defense is always on the field. They get tired a lot faster. Their play starts to dip. And also, they were banged up, too, offensively and defensively. So you look for another resurging Jacksonville Jaguar team to come back healthy. We've already heard the news on Telvin Smith. He's already kind of basically said that he's going to take the year off from Jacksonville. He's got to work on some personal issues. But what does that mean for this defense? Now, some people are like, oh, man, he's a Pro Bowl type of linebacker. What are we going to do there? I think the Jacksonville Jaguars played the cards perfectly right here. They go ahead and they sign Green Bay Packer Jake Ryan to go ahead and help fulfill one of those needs. He can play middle linebacker. He can also maybe go out to the outside linebacker role if they see fit. But they also drafted, and I don't know how he slid this far, but Josh Allen. Josh Allen, he played linebacker in college football. Some people saw him maybe making the transitioning to D-end with his speed and his pass rushing moves, but he can play linebacker just as well. He's 6'5", body type, 250, but he runs like the wind. Can pass defense really well at linebacker. Can go up and play the run. He can shed blocks. Unless if you get those clamps on him, I think that's kind of where he struggles. But he's another guy that could kind of fulfill that hole there, too. He could step right in on the outside linebacker position as well with Miles Jack, and you bring in Jake Ryan as well. This team looks really stout, even though they're missing Telvin Smith. The front defensive line isn't going to miss a beat. Marcel Darius is going to end up starting there. Taven Bryan, who was a young stud a couple years ago, they took in the first round for the reason of future hole that's going to open up. Could see him possibly start. Also, Yannick Ngakoue, one of the best pass rushers. He's going to be a guy looking for a new deal at the end of the season. And then the secondary, Jalen Ramsey, A.J. Bouye. You look at the safety position, to me, is going to be interesting because, Tashawn Gibson's gone. They've had a nice run there. But Ronnie Harrison, I think, is going to really hold it down for them on the back end. This team, it doesn't really have much of a weakness anywhere. And with this new and improved offense, with Nick Foles at quarterback, Leonard Fournette coming back healthy, a stud of an offensive line that was banged up last year also coming back healthy, and young receivers like Keelan Cole, who me and Jimmy are almost in love with. It's like a man love right now. We think he's going to take a huge leap with Nick Foles at the helm. Watch out for the Jacksonville Jaguars on defense.
There we go. And then, Joe, here's our top 10 here. Why don't you read them off here? We'll bring it right up to number 1.
All right, right up from number 10, we have a surprise to some people. The Indianapolis Colts at number 10, the New Orleans Saints at number 9, the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 8, Minnesota Vikings take the 7th spot. Number 6, another surprise for some people, the Cleveland Browns, we think are going to push up into the top 10 on defense. Number 5, the Packers, slowly building under the radar. Buffalo Bills have always been a really good defense. We don't see many holes for them, and with an improved offense, we see them taking another step forward. Number 3, the Dallas Cowboys. You know, they've built one heck of a defense. It's very young right now, which is very scary for opponents. So watch out for the Cowboys. We see them getting to the top 3. And at number 2, the Jacksonville Jaguars. We see them taking a major leap back and reasserting themselves on defense and showing the NFL world that they are ready and back once again. And at number 1, we have the Chicago Bears. Yeah, many of you probably already predicted this was going to happen.
Yes.
Because they're one of those rosters, or they were one of the best defenses in the league last year. We look at them now, and they really don't have a weakness. Yes, Adrian Amos moved on, but what the funny part of this whole story is that Clinton Dix, they kind of swapped safeties, basically is what happened. Adrian Amos goes to Green Bay. Clinton Dix ends up in Chicago. Nobody misses a beat. This team is very deadly on defense. You know, Khalil Mack, Akeem Hicks
Yeah.
and company, all these guys, they're super good. They're going to be tough to deal with. They create turnovers. They create havoc in the backfield. There's not a defense that's kind of really like them. They're very physical. So we think with another year with Mitch Trubisky and this offense with chemistry building up, we think this defense is going to take another step forward. They're going to be number 1.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't deny it. We talked about it last year before the season started to watch out for this team. The Chicago Bears were going to be our most improved team. They're going to make the playoffs, and look what happened. They went and took the division. You know, they're just lights out like that. By storm. Yeah, see? And then it was funny because then you start hearing everyone on the end. It's like, we realized they were top 10 their defense last year.
Maybe you should have watched Football on the Know.
Maybe.
That's all I'm saying.
No, yeah, we said it on national TV on News Channel 6 around here, and we said it to everybody.
That's right. So here's one quick interesting thing, too, is that the Bears have also moved on from Jordan Howard in the backfield.
Yes, that's true.
So now you got to wonder, what's Tariq Cohen? Is he going to be the more of a featured back for them? Is he going to still be like more of a rotational back? Because I really think that Matt Nagy loves Tariq Cohen so much that I think he's going to be heavily used this season.
I think he should, too, because he's such a great talent and stuff, and he is elusive and can do a lot. I want to see him just rip off the top with this guy.
Right.
The sky's the limit because you could do a lot of different types of
I mean,
things
he's
in this
deadly
offense
in the
with him.
open space.
Absolutely.
And then you
he's
also
been
look
known to throw the ball.
Right. You also look at, too, they did add some depth there, and Mike Davis coming over from the Seattle Seahawks. Mike Davis, I'll tell you right now, he's like a bowling ball.
Yeah.
He's very hard to bring down. He's very physical, and he's younger than Jordan Howard. So I think the Bears were okay with the fact, like, okay, we'll get rid of Howard. We'll bring in a little bit younger guy who can do the little things that we need him to do, short gain, if they need to move the chains or whatever, pound the rock between the tackles. So this team, I mean, they didn't lose anything. They gained. I think they got a little bit better. And also, we talk about Mitch Trubisky. If he can take another, even if it's a baby step forward in his development, this offense will be even better, which is going to make this defense even better.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we said this team was going to be great, too, and then all of a sudden they pulled off. That was before they pulled off the draft, the trade for Khalil Mack.
Yep.
So, I mean, that adds the depth there, too. And where they started even double-teaming and leaving guys open, Akeem Hicks was getting in either way. But then when they left for the double team on Khalil Mack, Hicks was just all over in that backfield. Yep. So much depth. Like you said, Kyle Fuller, Eddie Jackson again. Boom.
Great
what a
safety.
great safety, great year. And to get Clinton Dix, jumping back into that division after a stint with Washington.
It's laughable.
Just
like his first name.
It's amazing how
it's insane how
things happen.
They just they haven't lost anything. You look at, here's the thing. Here's the craziest thing. Roquan Smith, who they drafted, came in as a rookie, didn't even perform like a rookie. He performed like a 10-year vet. And,
Yeah,
and it's
absolutely. He
crazy.
played the few-
He's coming
yeah.
into the second year
Absolutely.
of his career.
Yep.
He's only going to get better, which is scary.
Mm-hmm.
It's super scary. I'm sorry. This defense, super high on. Can't wait to see how they perform this season and this Chicago Bears team. I mean, lights out.
There you go. That is our 2019 Tom 10 projected defenses. Yeah, there you go. That was quite the list, Joe. So that could be our lists.
Just real quick, we just want to confirm that it is a projected list. It's not top 10 list from last year. So we're just going ahead and we're projecting to see where they're going to end up after 2019 is said and done.
Mm-hmm. You know, one thing I forgot, Joe. Well, we said it before our show started. Instead of our regular starting soon, but happy 4th of July
4th,
to everybody
everybody
out there. How about that? We're celebrating our Independence Day.
That's right. As a country,
as
some crazy Americans.
Oh yeah, people are going to be partying it up, and it's a party in the USA, as Miley Cyrus says. Right.
Also, on top of that, we should just go ahead and say this. Thank you to all the men and women that serve and have served for our military. You guys are the best. You guys are the only reason why we're able to do what we do on a daily basis, going to work during the day, and not have to really worry. It's all because of the military.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely here. So moving into our next spot, Joe, let's hit him up with some headlines here. Go to the top. What do you say?
Oh, yeah.
All right, get this, everybody. Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce is going to be attending a superfan's wedding. There was a contest going on in the sweepstakes that, if
That's
you,
awesome.
if
I
you
saw the
enter-
reveal on that.
Yeah,
I watched that.
and the funny thing is he released he did like a video, face-to-face video.
Like a FaceTime deal with
him.
them. Yeah,
FaceTime deal for the lucky couple that just won the contest. Truly amazing. He can't wait to party it up and dance on the dance floor. Kansas City's bachelor is now going to a wedding. Watch out, bridesmaids. Alvin Kamara, Ted Ginn, Marquise Goodwin, some of the fastest guys in the NFL, and others are holding a 40-yard dash tournament called 40 Yards of Gold for $1 million.
Boom.
That's
I like
right.
it. See, there
and
we
this is something that I think that the NFL should bring back, because they used to do it for the Pro Bowl, for all these contests and these drills that they used to do to find out who the fastest guy is. And it seems like the players got to take it into their own hands just to prove who's the fastest. So if you get a chance, check it out.
Egos go. Egos
And
all
see
about
what you
it.
can see. Browns running back Kareem Hunt allegedly involved in a bar fight, shocker, in Cleveland. So here's an upstanding citizen. This is a guy who not only got in trouble for, kicking a woman while she was down, basically beating the crap out of her with his feet, and he doesn't get nothing but an 8-game suspension instead of getting kicked out of the league. I don't understand the NFL, what they're trying to do, but now he's also starting fights in a bar in Cleveland. Just think I should let you know. And I'm sure the NFL, don't worry everybody, I'm sure the NFL will figure out a punishment properly for him as well. Former NFL quarterback Mark Rippon was arrested Sunday and charged with 4th-degree assault, according to Luke Thoburn of KHQ.com. Mark, what are you doing?
Come on,
Come
man.
on, you're an old
Come
guy.
on.
What
You
the hell are you doing
be
trying to start
better.
fights?
Yeah.
According to ESPN's Dan Graziano, 3 negotiating sessions have already taken place between the owners and players since April. In July alone, 3 or 4 more of those discussions could reportedly take place, with the goal of having, get this, a new deal in place before the start of the 2019 regular season.
They're really jumping on this.
So
thing.
they're really, the NFL is taking initiative hard,
Yeah.
and they are pushing hard to get a new CBA done, because, quite honestly, the NFL is making way too much money to postpone any kind of play. So they're pushing hard to try to get a CBA agreed to and done before the deadline for the CBA even commences. So I got to give props to the NFL taking this initiative. However, it's more of a strategy at this point for the NFL. They want to get something done quick, and before players even know it's over, it's already agreed to. I think they're trying to get, pull some things. We've already seen the NFL do a couple of things to kind of, to kind of, like, we already noticed that the one thing where they are allowing the organizations and the players to be on in the stadiums, like souvenir cups and beers, and they're going to have custom, pint glasses and bottles and cans and all that made, so they can get some revenue and earn some revenue off of the alcohol that's served in the stadium. So I think they're doing things like that to try to get the CBA, get the players and the and the
Start
players
sharing the
union
money.
all kind of softened up a little bit.
Yeah,
And they're
let's
like,
do
hey,
it.
let's get this done.
Yeah.
The Arizona Cardinals and its players helped to deliver, get this, 76 beds to residents at the Manor House, a housing complex for military vets. So
Yeah. That was cool.
awesome. Congratulations, Arizona Cardinals. We applaud you heavily. And I'm sure that there's way more military vets now very happy that they can sleep on a nice
Absolutely.
soft
Way to go for them.
bed. Peyton Manning turned down Monday Night Football because he didn't want to analyze his brother, Eli Manning. I'm sorry, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's already happened before. I'm pretty sure
might have.
he's had a guest appearance on one of the on his games, and they're like, "Oh, what do you think Eli's doing?" Yeah, well, gave his little tidbit. Listen, you want to analyze your brother. I'm pretty sure you want to pick on him a little bit.
I know.
No,
They should
I
just have Cooper Manning do it, I think. I think he'd be a little more entertaining. He's pretty
might
funny.
be.
I like him,
He
too.
is. It's all the Mannings.
Yeah,
the whole
they all
family's hilarious.
They should just have their own show.
Reality show. Let's
Yeah.
go. Do it.
Yeah. Keep it up with the Mannings.
Former Kentucky and New York Giants quarterback Jared Lorenzen tragically dies at the age of 38.
38.
Very
Yeah.
young, 38. He was battling an infection, and he also had kidney and heart issues. So our condolences go out to the family and friends of Jared Lorenzen. And for the younger generation that might not have any clue who this guy was, I'm sorry, but he's the absolute biggest quarterback you'll ever see play.
Yeah.
I mean, he was like, I don't even know what he was in college. He played for the University of Kentucky. I think he might have been like 280 or something in college, maybe
Something.
290.
He was definitely
But later
hefty,
in his
big.
career, he just ballooned up. Now
Well,
he's like 360,
he's a star in
380.
Canada.
Yeah.
He was playing well for that in a Canadian
One of the biggest
team, but
quarterbacks
yeah.
you'll ever see,
Yeah.
and I would be interested. You know what? I would love to see some highlight plays of people trying to tackle him.
Right.
Sack him.
Yeah.
Big dude. Dallas Cowboys running back Ezekiel Elliott won't face any suspension from the NFL for an altercation that happened in Las Vegas at Las Vegas Music Festival in May, according to NFL reporter Ed Werder. Now, here's the interesting thing. This is what ended up happening. Is Zeke had a disagreement with his girlfriend at the time and later pushed a security guard to the ground after confronting him and shouting, "You got something to say?"
Was that how he said it?
That's it. That's exactly how he said it. Even though
Great impression.
Ezekiel Elliott is one of the biggest woodchucks you'll ever see in the NFL. This guy does nothing but problems. It's a laundry list,
call names.
of problems, over and over and over again. And now, I'm sorry, but Jerry Jones had to step in here and talk to the NFL about this, because for him to not get any suspension, hey, listen, hey, Zeke, if you apologize publicly through Twitter or something, we'll let it slide. No problem.
Yeah,
It's
something.
okay.
Yeah, we'll see. He said he's going to try and be a better person.
Yeah.
We'll see what
I mean,
happens. I don't know.
We've heard this last year from him too, so can't wait to see what next offseason brings.
Yep.
Or maybe even during the
Hey,
regular season.
I
But
don't
there
know.
you have it, everybody. That's the drop.
You'd like to say, let's just hurt him where where it hurts, like the pocket, and don't give him his deal. But again, if you don't give him his deal, though, you're giving away Zeke Elliott. So I mean, it's tough though. It's tough with the
And that's the whole point of suspensions.
type
You
of
take
thing.
away
Yeah.
their game checks.
Yeah.
That's what really hurts.
Yeah, it shouldn't have to be like the team has to do the punishment and stuff. So, but it's tough. Who hopefully he can straighten stuff out here, and it'd be a shame for those Dallas Cowboy fans and the Dallas team to lose a player of that magnitude. But
Jerry Jones won't let it happen.
But some of these guys, though, we've had talks about ethics before with Tyreek Hill and
Don't get me
everything. We
started.
did it, last week. So things that guys keep getting in trouble, it keeps popping up. It doesn't. We don't have these talks just to talk about it because we just want to hear ourselves talk.
And I'm not trying to.
it's
I'm definitely not.
constant things that keep happening. And
Right.
They put themselves out there.
And I'm not trying to compare what Zeke did to Tyreek Hill or Kareem Hunt.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's on a whole other different level. I went off last week about it. They should not be playing in the NFL. Zeke, maybe give him a 2-game suspension.
All right.
Maybe or a 1 game, whatever.
Perhaps.
Something.
All right, here we got Mike Tackett here joining in with us again, and he is all excited. We got him excited about the Hall of Fame talk.
All right. What do we got?
By the way, he just finished his All Madden Greats roster for, so there you go, his all team. all-time greats roster for Madden.
Excellent.
So he's excited about
Like
so.
it.
All right, it's
Let's
Hall
go.
of Fame rapid fire. Here's a list of current and recent NFL players. Of course, I left out the big names such as Brady, Rodgers, etc. with a yes or no. Are these players first ballot entries? Joe, you want to cue us up with some music? Let's have some fun with this. Cue us up with some music here. You got it going already?
Yeah, we got to
All
go.
right, it's going already. All right, here we go. I'm gonna say yes or no. All right, ready?
I'm going to try.
All right, I was going to say Hall of Fame, yes or no? That's what we're doing? All right, rapid fire. Larry Fitzgerald, yes
Yes.
or no? Philip Rivers,
Yes.
Ben Roethlisberger,
Yeah.
yeah. Eli Manning,
Yes.
Russell Wilson,
Too early.
Gronk,
Yes.
Aaron Donald,
Yes.
Patrick Peterson,
Ooh. Yeah. I'm going to have to go say yes.
J.J. Watt,
Say no.
Antonio Brown,
Yes.
Richard Sherman,
No.
Joe Thomas,
Yes.
Jason Witten,
Yes. I'll just say yes.
all right, Darrell Revis,
Yes.
Von Miller,
No.
Joe's favorite Cam Newton.
No.
Who's upset with that? Khalil Mack.
Absolutely.
There you go. So there you go. There's rapid fires we could do.
I'm telling you, a couple of them really stumped me because, you know, I have mixed feelings on a guy by the name of Richard Sherman. I have mixed feelings about, where is he? Russell Wilson.
Russell
To me,
Wilson?
Russell Wilson, it's kind of like too early for me. Like, I think he still needs to keep playing a little bit more in order for me to give a definitive answer. And a couple of them stumped me, you know, like Big Ben. He's done great, but he's also had his fair share of bumps along the roads too, much like Phillip Rivers as well. But like if you're thinking like me, like when I see these names and everything, I'm thinking not really stats. I'm thinking
Yeah.
more like how they play
play.
through their career. So some of them are kind of borderline, so that's what makes it tougher. Like Von
Yeah,
Miller.
yeah, that's why
Von
he
Miller
did
to
it
me
that
is
way.
like borderline. Like I see Von Miller as like a he's basically just a pass rusher. Like that's how I see him. So, I mean, if you're just a pass rusher and he's not real great at covering anybody at the linebacker position or playing the run very well, I'm sorry, I kind of struggle with that. Cam Newton, I'm sorry, I just can't. I just can't put him in the Hall of
No,
Fame.
because
at all.
what has he really done?
Yeah, I mean,
Yes, he was NFL MVP 1 year.
Yeah.
and that was his
And he
one
did
year
great-
that
and he
he
did
went
great
to the
that
Super
year.
Bowl. Did play?
He
Did
did
play
great.
well,
but it's not.
and
He hasn't been
what have
able
you
to.
done since?
Right, he hasn't had a lot of success and
1
carried
year
it for a
flash,
long
yeah.
amount of time. So sorry, he just can't be in.
There you go. So that's it here. All right, go now to our biggest questions here. We are at the NFC West's biggest questions, Joe, to wrap up our show here tonight.
They are the biggest questions.
Biggest questions. Yeah, they are the biggest and baddest questions. Here, I should have pulled them up already. Here we go. We are talking about the NFC West, right, Joe?
Whatever you say, boss.
That's what we said. That's yes. All right, here we go.
I don't know why you're asking me.
I don't know. I'm trying to buy time till I pull
Just
up my thing.
Be
Here we
assertive,
go.
man.
Yes.
Just tell
here
me
we're
what
gonna-
it's going to be.
All right. Well, we're talking about the Arizona Cardinals first.
Let's
Joe,
do
with
it.
our biggest questions.
Kyler Murray, Kyler Murray,
Um,
Kyler Murray, Kyler Murray,
No, I'm
Kyler
not gonna.
Murray. Kyler Murray.
I'm not gonna ask about Kyler Murray. I
Kyler
try
Murray.
not to. I try not to
Kyler?
do the same stuff that
Kyler?
everybody does, Joe.
No, I'm saying this for my own benefit
What?
because if you remember last week, I forgot his name.
Oh, Kyler Murray. Well, what's his who?
Kyler Murray.
Hey, we just did a race with Andy Isabella. Did you see that?
yes,
we
I
tried to
did see
race
that.
each other?
Of
Yeah.
course, I saw that.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I think he posted
We
it.
posted it, bro.
There you go. Speaking of which, yeah, join our group and follow all of our Instagram and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. You know, I tried to do the Morgan Freeman video up to our Instagram live TV.
Yeah.
I had to make it an MP4 or something like that. Got down to load it, and it was an error. It
Oh.
really pissed me off.
Are you
You know, I was trying to get to go. So I want to share that with our Instagram guys. So I'm going to try again tonight
All right.
to try and get that up for everybody.
Yeah,
'cause
that's
it's a really
great stuff.
hilarious clip. All right, Arizona Cardinals. My biggest question for the Arizona Cardinals is: will the offensive line improve this season?
It
You know,
already
with
has.
yeah,
That's
I
the
know.
amazing part.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
so I think on paper it looks like a pretty decent offensive line. You know, they got the return of Mason Cole at center. He was banged up last year. He's coming back this year healthy. J.R. Sweezy they picked off of Seattle, you know, and he improved his play up there. And I think it's because Tom Cable got fired. I know it's kind of funny how your offensive line coach gets fired and you get better. That, you know, they did the right thing. So DJ Humphries, he's been quietly a decent left tackle for them. very young too. So he's going to keep developing as a left tackle for them. So there you got the whole left side there. And then you go to the right side. They ended up adding Justin Pugh, a decent right guard for them, and definitely better than what they had before. And they pulled off, this is what I think the best addition was, they pulled off a trade from Marcus Gilbert from the Pittsburgh Steelers, a veteran who's going to come in there and lock down that right side. So, yes, all in all, this offensive line not only got improved, but it got better in every position.
Yeah, last year, Josh Rosen, his stats here, he was sacked 45 times, 11 TDs, 14 interceptions, 10 fumbles. So this guy was under a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And this team, the Arizona Cardinals, an offense was ranked last in every category. 32nd in everything. That's how horrible they were. So when people want to try and bust on Josh Rosen, he was trying to do whatever he could possibly with this team.
It's hard to do anything when you got no offensive line and only like maybe one or two
traded,
weapons.
like you said, they got Marcus Gilbert there from Pittsburgh. 2017, he was suspended for 4 games for PEDs. They signed Sweezy too. He's got a foot injury, so maybe watch out for these guys. Hopefully there aren't going to be any kind of issues there.
They'll be healthy by the time
and
it matters.
But Kyler Murray is also elusive. He's different than Josh Rosen. If there
Way
is
different.
any kind of issues, he can get out of the pack there. And like I said before, Andy Isabella, they drafted him round 2. A great wide receiver to add to Larry Fitzgerald there, so this offense can get going and not just rely a little bit on Larry and Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk. Well, year 2 now for him.
Yeah.
So he
Christian
was
Kirk
great
coming
last
into
year,
his second year. Also,
Absolutely.
watch out for Akeem Butler. I was very high on this kid out of Iowa State. He's a very big target. He's got speed. He can run routes well, and he's got a humongous catch radius, much like Larry Fitzgerald. Great hands. Christian Kirk with Akeem Butler, with Larry Fitzgerald coming back. And Andy Isabella, like you mentioned before, a very fast guy who I think could absolutely slay in the slot. I think he's got to start for this team. This team could be have a big step in the right direction.
All right, now
if they end up starting those guys.
moving on to the Los Angeles Rams. Now, my big question for them is, how will Todd Gurley's limited role affect the offense? They drafted running back Darrell Henderson from Memphis in round 3. Cooper Kupp returns now here, so they have another wide receiving threat.
Yeah.
What are they going to do with this offense? What's great for this type of deal is that Sean McVay gives you different looks all the time. I love the what the hell did they call that?
Jet sweeps?
Yeah, jet sweeps right there. Things like that, and get Robert Woods and other players involved, and where you're not sure who's exactly getting the ball.
Brandon
and moving
Cooks.
around. So you got all different looks there for that type of offense, and they can make it happen here. But you also saw the difference, though, when they weren't running Todd Gurley. They had to rely on C.J. Anderson. C.J. Anderson was doing well, definitely, and making it work for them. But again, this team started, if you looked at the points they were doing per game before the injury to Todd Gurley, it was like 34 points per game. It dropped to like a 22 points per game.
Right.
And so it's a different look still for the Los Angeles Rams. So how are they going to attack his limited role here this season?
Here's the thing, and they're calling it a limited role, but we don't know how limited it's going to be. We haven't seen how they're going to really use them. Todd Gurley, as a special of a player that he is, he's going to get healthy by week 1. And I think they're going to limit him in terms of not really kind of grind him out. Not much like what John Gruden did back with Cadillac Williams in Tampa, where like he ran a crap ton of carries and just kind of drove him into the ground. Todd Gurley, they know that he's had a bad knee issue coming out of Georgia in the draft. They already knew about this. They knew that it could honestly catch up to him, and it had in the postseason last year. I think they're going to just be careful with him. I don't think they're going to like give him the rock all the time. I think it's going to be more of a, like a split back type of deal. Malcolm Brown's going to get some carries. They also drafted Darrell Henderson, who there's a lot of praise coming out of OTAs about him. So look for him. He's a little bit different of a back. So they're just going to give different looks with different backs. And Todd Gurley is going to still be the featured guy, but he's not going to be the lone guy. He's not going to be taking on a ton of carries like he was early in his career. So I think they're just going to alleviate some pressure from him. They're still going to run the same type of offense. And quite honestly, I think they need to be a little bit more balanced this year than they were the previous year, because when they get to the Super Bowl, they kind of went away from running the ball, and that was a huge no-no for them. Sean McVay kind of played into the hands of Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick is seen as more like a Jedi master with mind tricks and everything. He got to McVay before the Super Bowl started, and McVay was all goo-goo gaga over Belichick and commended him on everything. And then Bill's like, oh, man, I got this in the bag already.
Oh,
He
yeah,
has no
definitely.
idea.
Salivating.
So I think Sean McVay got a little too cute in the Super Bowl, and you need to stick with what works. So with Todd Gurley or not, they had their chance, and they just didn't play their own game. So going into this season, I'm looking for them to become not as heavy in the run game, and maybe that's part of what they mean by limited for Todd Gurley. Maybe they're going to make it more balanced. With all these weapons that they have, Cooper Kupp, Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods, and you look at the late emergence of their tight end and Gerald Everett. I see him becoming more and more of a weapon that they're going to use along with Tyler Higbee. Watch out for them. I really do think that they'll become more of a balanced offense, and that's what they possibly could mean in terms of limiting Todd Gurley a little bit.
All right, yeah, moving on to the San Francisco 49ers, Joe, here in the NFC West. Biggest questions. All right, my biggest question here for the San Francisco 49ers is, can they be the team that they were supposed to be in 2018? Everybody excited about them.
Yeah.
Almost like the way people are excited about the Cleveland Browns almost. They
In a sense,
got to see what Jimmy G could do within those 5 or 6 games straight, and then goes down with an ACL tear, right early. So then they have to start a plethora of quarterbacks, and Nick Mullins ends up being their most successful quarterback out of all of them, and was riding that train for a while until it halted.
Right.
And but they do draft wide receiver Deebo Samuel in round 2 and Jalen Hurd in round 3. They signed Jordan Matthews here also for that team. So because the one knock you did have with them is, who's the wide receiver here? They do have Godwin there, who's trying to be an emerging wide receiver, but they needed more depth there in that position. So they do that. And now on defense, they traded for D Ford, which was great. They signed Quan Alexander, like you talked about earlier. They draft Nick Bosa, who's suffered a hamstring strain right now, but will be back for camp and for the preseason. So we'll see what happens there. So they're trying to build onto their defense here as well. Can this team now finally move forward and possibly make a run for this division?
Here's the thing, bottom line, quarterback, most important position in football. Jimmy G coming back healthy yet again, and that's a big thing. So as long as Jimmy G can stay healthy, stay away from the hits, don't get knocked out of bounds, just go out. Just go out of bounds willingly, slide if you have to, do whatever you have to, stay healthy. If Jimmy G stays healthy, this team has the opportunity, has the possibility to go far. Can they win the division? It's going to be tough. It's going to be a little bit of an uphill battle. And the other thing, too, is they do have D Ford that they've traded for from the Kansas City Chiefs to add to that defensive line. He's penciled in as the end. I just wanted the Kansas City Chiefs to know that, because they said he didn't fit in a 4-3 defense. Just saying. But anyway, but they do have D Ford there. They have with Nick Bosa, if he can stay healthy too, he's another guy who tends to get injured. Was heavily injured in college. When he's healthy, definitely one of the best on the field. This defensive line is stout. You got Quan Alexander, like you were saying before. And quite honestly, you look at their secondary, though. Their secondary is a little weak. You do have the return of Jaquizzi Tart. You do have Adrian Colbert. And a guy that I was kind of high on last year before the season started in Ankelo Witherspoon, but was greatly disappointing last year. Richard Sherman, who got brought over to the Niners, another disappointment as well. So to me, they still don't have an identity in that secondary. I think that's where teams are going to hit them hard and hit them often. And defensively, still rebuilding in my opinion. Offensively, they're closer. They're closer into being that team that's going to be hard to beat. Deebo Samuels, he's a rookie wide receiver coming in, could play a significant role in this offense. Look at Jordan Matthews. It's interesting with him is that he's never really been playing where he needs to be playing, and that's slot receiver. If the Niners keep him in at the slot, I think that's going to greatly benefit them. Dante Pettis, Another guy returning it for his third year is going to keep developing, and man, is he a good player. He's going to be a stud for them. Jalen Hurd, who I think is a little bit of a sleeper out of the draft in the third round. Niners got themselves a stud, I think. I think as long as he stays on the straight and narrow, stays out of trouble, I think he can develop to becoming another great receiver for them. You brought up the speedster and Marquise Goodwin. Again, one of the fastest guys in the NFL. He's going to keep continuing to be that. So I think overall they got deeper with this receiving core, which is going to benefit them greatly. And again, it comes down George Kittle, one of the biggest favorites of this offense, and Jimmy G. Quite honestly, is going to connect a lot with them.
Yeah,
we mentioned him as our number one tight end projected after the 2019 season. Think he's going to claim the crown there, and it's going to be because of Jimmy G and this new revamped receiving core. So, do I think they're going to be better? Yes. Do I think they're going to challenge division? I don't think quite yet. I think they still got another offseason to go.
All right. Well, yeah, with the talent that is in that division, with the Rams who just went to the Super Bowl, and you've got this team who we're going to talk about now, the Seattle Seahawks, who almost by himself, without a Doug Baldwin and stuff, Russell Wilson puts the team on his shoulders, running around
again
like a chicken with his head cut off, going through. And when it seemed like they're struggling in the run game earlier on, didn't know how to really get it going. Eventually started to make it work and being the best running offense here in the NFL, along with him, and not only with Chris Carson, Rashad Penny, and J.D. McKissick. He's just oh my goodness. I don't know how Madden rates him so well and even puts him as the starter when he doesn't even play.
Doesn't even start.
I don't get that. You want to talk about a guy who gets praised with not even deserving it. But anyways, they move on from Frank Clark. Get rid of him.
Yep.
Guys on this defense are leaving constantly. Earl Thomas is gone now. And now to fit in the spot where they were missing Frank Clark down, they get Ziggy Ansah. See, I'm not so sure about this spot here, too, because, again, this guy was on a put-up-or-shut-up year last year.
He'll be good till week 4.
There you go.
I'm telling you, he'll be really good. He'll be really good till about week 4 to 6.
Yeah, and that's the problem you would deal with this guy here. Bobby Wagner's still a decent spot, but again, too, contract negotiations possibly going on with him. KJ Wright, lights out player there, definitely good spot for them. And a key piece of their defense. Shaquille Griffin, too. Solid corner, too, as well. They're getting great play from those guys here on defense. So my question is for them, again, is are they strong enough with losing that the players that they had on defense to make a push to make the playoffs again?
And that's the thing, you bring up Ziggy. He's an aging vet. He gets injured often. We make the joke that I'll be good for week 4 to 6. And it's a joke, but it's also kind of serious because this guy struggles to stay healthy. And if he goes down, I mean, they do have a rookie who's very highly touted out of the first round, L.J. Collier. But again, he's a rookie. We really don't know what to expect from rookies coming in. You can say, oh yeah, he'll be just fine. He'll pass rush. He's a really good player. But then again, if you're a rookie on this pass rushing line here and Ziggy's gone, teams only got to double team you. That's all they got to worry about. So that makes this defensive line one-dimensional. I don't think they have the crazy depth that they used to have, especially on this D-line. You lose Frank Clark. I'm sorry, but trading Frank Clark away, to me, was a mistake. I think they should have. He's a young stud in his prime and one of the best pass rushers. You try to keep those guys. I understand if it's a financial thing and you don't see any way to keep them. But I think that this team will have enough cap space to maybe make a deal work for Frank Clark. And I'm sorry, I think it's a mistake that they let him go and traded him away. You also got to wonder about Bobby Wagner. Jimmy just mentioned that they're working on a deal, and they are. They're trying to work on a deal. But here, we battled and debated last week, is he worth a new deal? Because he is kind of at the end of his career in terms of age. He is 29 years old. He will be 30 by next year. It's one of those gray areas, Guy's been a great player for Seattle his whole career. Turning 30, do you give a guy like that a 3-4 year deal? I think maybe so. I mean, he hasn't really lost anything. But in terms, he's got to stay healthy as well. So, but this team, overall, they got a lot of young depth in the secondary, and that's promising. But again, you look at the offense. You know, they did draft DK Metcalf. A lot of people were very high on him, but he struggles heavily with running routes, and that's a big deal. If you can't run great routes, you're not going to get open no matter how fast you are. So going forward, you look at Tyler Lockett, who I think is going to try to have to hold it down again in this receiving core. Also, David Moore. Watch out for him to keep making an impact. 7th-round draft pick that they managed to grab a couple years ago. So, and then their offensive line. Again, they lost J.R. Sweezy, so they had to replace that hole. They ended up go ahead and they draft. And here's the funny thing: they also swapped guards. The Cardinals and the Seahawks swapped guards. Mike Upati ends up finding his way to Seattle. So, I don't know. Overall, I still think Russell Wilson is once again going to have to be the total offense. He's going to have to do make a lot of crazy plays, and I don't think Seattle does enough or can do enough to win the division. I'm going to say that now. I don't think with some of the guys that have managed to leave, like a Frank Clark and like a Paul Richardson, another stellar receiver that they had on that team, he's gone. There's a lot of weight on DK Metcalf to develop really quickly for this offense.
Right.
But
what about a wild card spot? You know, they did enough last year to put them into the wild card. Now you think possibly sneak in there? They
I don't
probably
think
in a
so.
negotiation? No,
I don't think so. I think that they've lost. I'm sorry, but I think Frank Clark was a huge loss on that defense, and to add Ziggy Ansah. Yes, he's a great player when he's healthy, but then again, how long is he going to last? Because He is one of those guys that are injury prone. So I don't know. I don't think that they swapped out enough talent. After losing some talent, I don't think they replenished well enough to make that push.
Yeah, and they went out and they paid Russell Wilson too to make sure
Big
that he
time
was going
money.
to stay there too, where he had to do that uncomfortable video. Said, "Yo, what's good?" All right. Yeah, that's our show for tonight. Hope you all enjoyed it. We love the questions, the comments, and all that stuff. Like, share, post, follow us on Twitter, FB_no, Instagram, FB_no, I think, too, as well, and Snapchat, all the good stuff. YouTube, subscribe to us on YouTube. Everybody that's watching us on YouTube right now, just subscribe, hit the subscribe button, get all your notifications, stuff like that.
Yeah, let's have some fun talking
Periscope
football,
too.
everybody.
Yeah, again, Twitter, all you people on Twitter that we follow and talk to, we will be trying to get some people on for interviews in the next coming weeks, so that's going to be fun to get some of them on here to hear their opinions, and the season's coming, Joe. It's
so you
creeping
don't have
now.
to
We're
be so
into
bored
July
hearing
now.
our opinions all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So we can ask them questions and see what they have to say about it and stuff. So
Just want to say thank you to everybody out there. Happy 4th of July. Thanks for the support. Thanks all the military vets, the men and women that serve and have served. Also, I can't wait to talk next week. Hopefully we have more content to talk about. Hopefully there's a little bit more interesting headliners.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be a short show tonight. But,
No,
we
you're
actually made it
wrong.
work though. Whoever thought we would talk about the Hall of Fame so much though. So that's the way it goes though sometimes. But we love it. We love you guys. Thanks
right.
for chilling with us, and we will see you guys next time.
Join us next week from 8 till 10 Wednesday night for more Football on the Know with Jim and Joe. Join us next week from 8 till 10 Wednesday night for more Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.